Precious in the sight of Yahweh is the death of his saints. Warning, the beginning of the end, World War III, has started, and you need to know with 100% certainty how to restore and when is the next year of Jubilee. It is very near. Why is it important to know when is the next year of Jubilee? Because the next year of Jubilee is the day of Yahweh's vengeance. Isaiah 34:8, 61 verse 2, and 63 verse 4. It's the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. Isaiah 34 verse 8. The year of Yahweh's redeemed/redemption. Isaiah chapter 63 verse 4. The acceptable year of Yahweh. Isaiah 61 verse 2. Thus it is the year of the first resurrection. Here is a word search for day of vengeance. And here you see Isaiah 63 verse 4. For the day of vengeance is in mine heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. Isaiah 61:2 says to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh and the day of vengeance of our Elohim, to comfort all that mourn. So as you can see, it's the acceptable year, but it's also the day of vengeance. A day is as a year.
Isaiah 34:8.
For it is the day of Yahweh's vengeance and the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. So we see the day of Yahweh's vengeance and the year of recompenses, a days as the years.
And here's Deuteronomy chapter 32, which is the Song of Moses. And this is going to be so important in this video later on, where I bring in the Song of Moses, because it's prophecies against the real Israelites and vengeance and recompense. So this is something to consider as well.
We need to know and pay attention to this day of vengeance theme. And very important to also know is that mourning, to mourn, to be sorrowful, happens before the joy. And why is there going to be mourning? Because there's going to be a lot of death. Isaiah 61. The Spirit of Yahweh is upon me, because Yahweh hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. And he hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh, and the day of vengeance of our Elohim, to comfort all that mourn, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of Yahweh, that he might be glorified. So you see mourning 3 times in this passage. The mourning first comes, and then the joy comes, but first there has to be mourning. And when do people mourn? When there's a lot of death. And it's important to note that Messiah Yeshua, he stopped right here to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh. He did not proclaim the day of vengeance of our Elohim. So I will also prove that when Messiah Yeshua read these 2 verses here of Isaiah 61 verse 1 and part of 2, that it was not a year of Jubilee year when Messiah Yeshua quoted this, but rather it was a Shemitah year and a Sabbath year, as I will prove on the Restored Jubilee timeline in this video. In my video over a year ago, I identified Messiah Yeshua's end time overview, and it ends with redemption, which is the Jubilee year. So here is a slide from that presentation, and this is Messiah Yeshua's end times overview. So let Messiah Yeshua tell you exactly the order of events sequentially and how they're going to play out in the end times. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. And upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and then they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. Your redemption. We're looking for the redemption. What redemption? The year of Jubilee. Isaiah 63 verse 4. For the day of vengeance is in mine heart, and the year of my redeemed is come.
So Messiah Yeshua is instructing us to look out for the year of Jubilee of Isaiah 63 verse 4. So Messiah Yeshua said, when we see these things to begin to come to pass, lift up your heads, and we're supposed to look out for the Jubilee year. That's why I'm making this video, so we know when the Jubilee year is. It says that there'll be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. Well, that's the Revelation 12 sign. The woman was clothed with the sun, had a moon underneath her feet, and had a crown of 12 stars above her head. So when that happened on September 24th, 2017, we're supposed to be looking for the Jubilee year. The next event in it is the distress of nations with perplexity, the seas and the waves roaring. So let me go ahead and play a clip from that video from over a year ago with this slide in it to prove to you that this is what the UN General Director just said. He unknowingly quoted this part of the verse that there's distress of nations with the seas and the waves are roaring. And this is happening at the United Nations. The next thing is World War III. Men's hearts going to be failing them for fear, for looking after these things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. When nuclear bombs are going off in the atmosphere, that's the powers of the heavens being shaken.
The next verse is, upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity, the seas and the waves roaring. And that is where we are currently at. Item number 2 of 5, as the UN chief just said a couple of days ago.
Over a year ago from the time of this video, which was in September 2022.
That the sea and the waves are roaring. He said there's gridlock in the earth, which means there is distress and perplexity. People don't know how to drive. Everything is locked up in gridlock in the traffic. So they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know. They're distressed. It's perplexity, and the sea and the waves are roaring.
Excellencies, we need action across the board. Let's have no illusions. We are in rough seas. We are in rough seas. We are in rough seas. A winter of global discontent is on the horizon. A cost of living crisis is raging. Trust is crumbling. Inequalities are exploding. And our planet is burning. The United Nations Charter and the ideals it represents are in jeopardy. We have a duty to act, and yet we are gridlocked in colossal global dysfunction. And yet we are gridlocked in colossal global dysfunction. The international community is not ready or willing to tackle the big, dramatic challenges of our age.
So there you have it.
We are here, the distress of nations with perplexity, gridlock, the sea and the waves roaring. The UN Secretary General, he quoted this prophecy of Messiah Yeshua unknowingly.
We are in this prophecy, and the next event to happen of the end times overview here in this little passage is men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the power of heaven shall be shaken. So people's hearts are going to die. They're going to have heart attacks when they see these things in the heavens. Okay? And what are those things that they're seeing in the heavens? This is Luke chapter 21. I just read this. Men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking at those things which are coming on the earth, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. How are they going to be shaken? Right here in verse 10 of the same chapter. Messiah Yeshua is prophesying about World War III. Then said he, Messiah Yeshua, unto them, his disciples, nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. So that's regional wars and world war. And great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, and famines and pestilences and fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven. So what are these earthquakes? I've talked about this in my previous video. I'm now going to play a clip because I described it very well. Many of you aren't paying attention to my channel. You should, to get the correct interpretation of the end times and these scriptures. But Messiah Yeshua is talking about nuclear weapons being detonated in the atmosphere, causing great seismos or great earthquakes,
shock waves,
and that's those nuclear weapons are gonna cause, in these random places, are gonna cause famine. The whole supply chain of food is gonna stop. Pestilences is gonna rain down pestilence. That nuclear brimstone is gonna
Pestilence is also the nuclear fallout, which are like these pellets that drop, these radioactive pellets that drop from the atmosphere.
Rain down. Fearful sights. Everybody's going to be freaking out when they're seeing these bombs re-entering the atmosphere, these nuclear ICBM weapons entering in the atmosphere, and these are called great signs from the heaven in the atmosphere. They are great signs. Seeing nuclear bombs detonate before your very eyes, it's going to cause men's hearts to fail them for the fear of looking after these things when they realize that literally they're in nuclear World War III and their biggest fears have come upon them as prophesied in the prophet of Yahweh, Isaiah chapter 66, that I'm going to talk about. But he's going to bring people's biggest fears upon them because they didn't repent. And I'm going to show you that coming up in this video. But now let me go ahead and play a clip explaining the Greek words for great earthquakes from my previous video from 3 months ago.
At the time of this video you're watching now, this video is from 1.5 years ago.
About the horsemen of the apocalypse on the way, says Dmitry Medvedev, where I explained that the earthquakes in diverse places and the great signs is going to be nuclear missiles and bombs flying through the sky and detonating in the atmosphere, causing shock waves, great shock waves, and it's going to cause people to have heart attacks, and you're in World War III, and you're in the tribulation, the beginning of sorrows, because there's going to be a lot more destruction and pain after this. Then said he, Messiah Yeshua, unto them, nation shall rise against nation, regional wars, and kingdom against kingdom. World War III, NATO, America, US, UK, France, and the NATO allies versus Russia, Iran, and China. And great earthquakes, great seismos, great shock waves shall be in diverse places. If you ever look at the nuclear targets for nuclear weapons in World War III, they're all in diverse places, various places. So what you're looking at, these are diverse places.
Just as Messiah Yeshua prophesied.
This map, these targets, these are nuclear targets in just the USA alone. These are the top targets, and these are in various or diverse places throughout the earth. France has them, Great Britain has them, Germany has them.
NATO countries have them.
Wherever nuclear arms are stockpiled, those countries and decision centers are targeted by Russia. So you better believe that this is what Messiah Yeshua was talking about. And he said great seismos. So now let me go ahead and pull up the Strong's Concordance for that word earthquakes, and I'll prove to you that word earthquakes is seismos, which means shock waves. So here is the Greek word, Strong's G4578. The Greek word is seismos, which is the word that you get for seismograph. That's why it's translated as earthquakes, but it also is a shaking, a tempest, an earthquake, but it's also the word that we get for shock wave. A shock wave is a seismos through the atmosphere when nuclear bombs are detonated.
When nuclear bombs explode, they actually register on a seismograph as like a earthquake registers on a seismograph. That's the word seismos. And very important to note that a megaseismos, great earthquakes, are at least like 7.0 and higher, I think, are what's considered great earthquakes. So we're talking about huge nuclear bombs going off in the atmosphere, unleashing a huge amount of power.
So Messiah Yeshua is prophesying of nuclear war, nuclear targets in diverse places going off in the atmosphere, and that's going to cause famine, and then it's going to cause pestilence, disease, because of the nuclear fallout that's going to be going on. So that's why you have seals number 2, which is the nuclear war in the book of Revelation. You have seal number 3, which is going to be famine, because the U.S. and Russia are going to trade, and the grain exports are going to stop. It's going to cause the price of grain to go up, and famine for wheat. And then seal number 4 is going to be pestilence, because it's going to rain down pestilence, and there's going to be radiation
And nuclear fallout.
poisoning after this possibly, and that's going to be pestilence, and then dead bodies are going to be everywhere, and that's going to breed to more pestilence. So that's what you have. Seals 2, 3, and 4, there you have it. Messiah Yeshua was talking about that right here in Luke.
great signs shall there be from heaven. And the fearful sights and great signs that they're going to be from heaven is going to be bombs coming down, entering into the atmosphere. So this picture is a picture of an ICBM nuclear warheads. This is an artist's rendition of what it would look like, called a re-entry vehicle, because the old school ICBMs, they would go high up into the atmosphere. Then the head would detach, and inside the head there would be like 8 or 7, I don't know how many, nuclear warheads, and those nuclear warheads would re-enter, and when they re-enter, it lights up the sky like this. So at nighttime, if this thing goes down at night, people are going to be seeing, this is what they're going to see, and they're going to be freaking out because these are the great signs Messiah Yeshua prophesied of, and they're actually in it. When these ICBM warheads are raining down on them that got through the missile shields, this is what it's going to be. So these things have already begun to come to pass. The Revelation 12 sign, distress and gridlock, perplexity, seas and the waves roaring, the nations are confused. So we're supposed to be looking for the redemption, the year of redemption, the year of Jubilee, and that's why I am making this video.
And the next year of Jubilee is both the end of the age of grace and the new beginning of the next new age. The next year of Jubilee is also the fulfillment of Daniel 9:24's prophecy of 70 times sevens. And it's also the fulfillment of Messiah Yeshua's 70 times sevens prophecy. In the video you are now watching right now, I will provide you with the most important Astro Archeological information I received only 6 weeks ago that validates my video from over 2 years ago, this video right here that I did 2 years ago, Jubilee Year Restored. With this new information that I have, this Astro Archeological information of this tablet, I will verify and prove with 100% certainty when is the next year of Jubilee. If you've seen one of these very popular videos, they are wrong, and it's part of the mass deception. If you're one of the 2.7 million viewers who watched CJ Lovik and Rock Island Books video, 2023 End Times Prophecy, or if you're one of the 1.6 million viewers who watched the movie Messiah 2030, and you are disappointed and you're wondering why they failed and where they got it all wrong, then the video you're watching, my video, is for you. Video disclaimer, my video you're watching is not going to have animated cartoon drawings to entertain you like CJ Lovik's videos. And also, my video you're watching is not going to have a well-spoken, dramatized narrator with background music being played in the background to mesmerize you like the movie Messiah 2030. Animation, cartoons, and background music was used to feed you bad and wrong information and bad understandings. Rather, my video you are watching now is going to have the literal stone-hard evidence of this ancient Babylonian tablet and its contents written thereon, that when you synchronize the information in this tablet with the biblical history of Jeremiah chapter 52 verse 28 and 29 right here, and the hidden Jubilee year of Ezekiel 40 verse 1, altogether restores the Jubilee timeline with 100% certainty. We can then know when is the next Jubilee year, which is the beginning new age of the kingdom of Yahweh Elohim coming from heaven to earth. In CJ Lovik's newest video series, he says that he found his errors from his video that had the 2.7 million views, but he's now claiming it actually had 8 million people watched his video. That's a lot of people to confuse and to put out bad information. Now in his newest video series, he says that he needs over 50 data points are needed to prove his timeline and that it is very complicated.
But if you're interested in taking the journey with me that will connect all the dots and hopefully authenticate this perspective based on the Bible alone, then you will be happy to know that my goal and the goal of my graphic artist, Sergio Leone, to produce and present at least one new video a week, exploring all the over 50 dots that must be connected, in order to present an error-free forecast without any reservations on my part. I will leave you with a chart that demonstrates just some of the complexity. CJ
Lovik is still wrong. He is still confused and causing massive confusion to the 2.7 million viewers or 8 million viewers who watched his video. He does not know what he is doing, and he is deceived by false Zio-Christian fulfillments of Bible prophecy.
Also, I notice that some of you are concerned that as we approach the end of the Hebrew year on Tishri 1, which converts to around September 16th on the Roman calendar, that if I am not right about the start date for the time of Jacob's trouble, that my career as a prophecy teacher is over. Well, I agree. That if I am not right about the start date for the time of Jacob's trouble, that my career as a prophecy teacher is over. Well, I agree. As always, we invite the viewer to search out the scriptures.
So CJ put his career on him being right, which is a very prideful thing to do. We're all susceptible to pride. The days came and went. It didn't happen according to what he says. And now that the days came and went and that his prophecy interpretations are incorrect, he's now not following through, stopping as a Bible prophecy teacher, but he's continuing to make more videos filled with errors and fallacies. And one of the major problems with CJ Lovik is he is a false Zio-Christian prophecy teacher.
He's a false Zio-Christian prophecy teacher, and there's a lot of them out there on YouTube. The level of deception is very thick. A lot of Zio-Christians falsely teach and propagate, can a nation be born in a day? They say, yes, it happened in May 14th, 1948 with the Jewish state of Israel. It is a fulfillment of the Bible prophecy of Isaiah 66 verse 8. But dumb means you can't speak, you can't hear, you're blind. Okay, that's a dumb person. They don't have eyes to see or ears to hear, which means they can't speak.
Thus they are dumb.
But dumb Zio-Christians don't look at the context of the verse and understand that Isaiah 66:8 is talking about the resurrection. Who hath heard such a thing? Who hath seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day, or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion travailed, she brought forth her children. Until CJ Lovik understands that he's been deceived, he won't understand Bible prophecy. My method to restore the Jubilee timeline and know with 100% certainty the next year of Jubilee requires only 4 data points, not 50 data points like CJ Lovik says. And my method to restore is very simple and not complex like CJ Lovik's thing that he's trying to push on everybody. The only 4 data points needed to restore the year of Jubilee are right here. Ezekiel chapter 40 verse 1, Jeremiah 52 verse 28, Jeremiah 52 verse 29, and the Babylonian tablet VAT 4956. From these data points, we can plug that all in together and we can find and know when the next year of Jubilee is. These are the 4 data points that unlock the Jubilee count. Right here, you have the key right here to unlock it with this tablet. So this is what you have. You have Ezekiel chapter 40 verse 1, the hidden year of Jubilee. You have Jeremiah 52:28 recording the Babylonian captivity of King Jehoiakim in the 7th year of King Nebuchadnezzar. You have Jeremiah 52:29, when the Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem and the temple, recorded to be the 18th year of King Nebuchadnezzar. And then you have the hidden year of Jubilee in Ezekiel verse 41. And then you have VAT 4956, which gives us the astronomical signs of the 37th year of King Nebuchadnezzar. So if we can know
the BC year of the
37th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, then we can know
the BC year
of the 7th year
of Nebuchadnezzar and the BC year of the
18th year of King Nebuchadnezzar. And from the 7th year and the 18th year, we can count 25 years forward and 14 years forward to Ezekiel 40 verse 1 to know when the Jubilee is. And from that Jubilee, we can count Jubilees forward to know when the next year of Jubilee is. Simple as that. So, welcome to my video where you are going to get the facts and understanding you need to make informative decisions for yourself and for your family while we're on the verge of World War III. Leave your baggage of false understandings of Bible prophecy at the door, get a pen and paper, and take notes, as the information in this video is 100% important that you know and understand for yourself and others that you care about. Shalom and greetings to my brothers and sisters in Master Yeshua the Messiah, who have his testimony and guard his commandments. Brother Nicholas James Vanderlane here, and today is the 28th day of the 8th month on Yahweh Elohim's solar calibrated, non-Gregorian, 364-day calendar of the Dead Sea Scrolls, of the Book of Enoch, of the Book of Jubilees, of the Torah, of the prophets, of the Psalms, of the Gospels, of the Book of Acts, of the Book of Revelation. The Gregorian equivalent is November 15th, 2023. I'm recording and publishing this video from the island of Cyprus in the Eastern Mediterranean, and this video is Astro Archeology proves and confirms the next year of Jubilee. These are the two Babylonian tablets that I'm going to be using in this video. This tablet is called VAT 4956, and it records the observable astronomical signs of Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year of reign as king, and is the key to date the BC years and synchronize biblical history with the BC AD dating system. The other tablet that I'm going to be referencing in this video is the Babylonian Chronicle, Nebuchadnezzar Chronicle, which records the first Babylonian siege of Jerusalem and the captivity of King Jehoiachin, and Ezekiel was part of that captivity, to the 7th year of King Nebuchadnezzar's reign, and amazingly confirms the biblical history recorded of Jeremiah 52 verse 28. Here is the table of video contents for this video. The 4 data points that restores the Jubilee timeline. Solving the 5 steps of the Jubilee equation of Ezekiel chapter 40 verse 1. Counting to the next year of Jubilee. 3 proofs it was a Jubilee year when the Israelites crossed the Jordan. Astro Archeology proves the Israelites crossed the Jordan in 1406 BC in Joshua's long day. So I'll be tying up Joshua's long day with a solar eclipse. The next year of Jubilee is the 70th Jubilee of the Israelites since they crossed the Jordan River. The 70th Jubilee is the fulfillment of Daniel 9:24 and Messiah Yeshua's 70 times 7's prophecy, 70 Jubilees prophecy, as I will explain that a Jubilee is a week of years.
And it's also the fulfillment of Moses' prophecy of Deuteronomy 32, the Song of Moses, as Deuteronomy 32:43 is congruent with Daniel 9:24, as I will prove in this video. Super important. Pay attention to Moses' words, his prophecies for the end.
The 120th Jubilee prophecy of Genesis chapter 6 verse 3.
Possibly.
The falsely supposed Jubilees in the Bible. So like I said, Messiah Yeshua, when he proclaimed liberty, he wasn't proclaiming the year of Jubilee. It was not a Jubilee year. I'll show you when Messiah Yeshua's ministry started and how it lines up on this restored Jubilee timeline of Ezekiel 40 verse 1, and it fits perfectly.
Rather, there was a Shemitah year release at the beginning of Messiah Yeshua's ministry, and that is the same Shemitah year release of Zedekiah in Jeremiah 34.
The 69 weeks and the 70th week of Daniel 9:25, Messiah the Prince was to arrive 2017 to 2018. The 70th Jubilee in the Book of Revelation. So I'll be taking a look at the 70th Jubilee and the events that are going to happen in that year. The 4 data points that unlock the Jubilee count. As I said, there are only 4 data points that are needed. VAT 4956, the hidden Jubilee year of Ezekiel chapter 40 verse 1. The Babylonians destroying the Jerusalem, Jeremiah 52:29, which says it was the 18th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, and the Babylonian captivity of King Jehoiachin of Jeremiah chapter 52:28, which records it happened in the 7th year. So with these 4 data points right here, we can plug this all in together and know when is the next year of Jubilee. Data point number 1, the hidden Jubilee year in Ezekiel chapter 40 verse 1. Ezekiel 40 verse 1 contains the hidden year of Jubilee and anchor dates the year of Jubilee to 2 separate events. the Babylonian captivity of King Jehoiachin and the later Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. 2 years ago, I published my video on how to use the hidden Jubilee in the Bible to restore the count of the Jubilee year. In the video, I shared the one hidden Jubilee year in the scriptures per the notes of my Hebraic Roots Bible, the hidden Jubilee in Ezekiel 40 verse 1. Let me play a clip for you from that video.
Here is my Hebraic Roots Bible, a literal translation. I recommend this Bible. I'll put a link to it in the description. I'm going to open up to Ezekiel chapter 40. Right here, Ezekiel chapter 40. And you can read, in the 25th year of our exile, in the beginning of the year, in the 10th of the month, in the 14th of the year after the city was struck. And as you can see, number 3 right here, and you go to note number 3, the phrase beginning of the year is Rosh Hashanah. The only time Rosh Hashanah is on the 10th day of the 7th month is a Jubilee, per Leviticus 25 verse 9. So that's how I knew that this was speaking of a Jubilee year.
The Jubilee equation of Ezekiel 40 verse 1. In the 25th year of our captivity, at the beginning head Rosh of the year, Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah, on the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after the city was smitten, captured, on the very same day, the hand of Yahweh was upon me and he took me there. So here is the secret Jubilee right here, because the only time the head of the year is on the 10th day of the month is on the Jubilee year,
Which starts in the 7th month.
So this is the secret verse for the Jubilee right here in the Bible. And it says this event happened in the 25th year of their captivity, so from the captivity of King Jehoiachin, and also in the 14th year after the city was smitten. So we need to get the dates for these events. And once we get the dates for these events, we can know this date right here of Ezekiel 40 verse 1 when the Jubilee year was. And then from that Jubilee year, we can count Jubilee years forward to know when the next year of Jubilee is. It's that simple. Not 50 data points. Not very complex. Restoring the Jubilee timeline. Once we get the date for this Jubilee right here, we can count backwards Jubilees to when the Israelites crossed the Jordan, and we can count forwards Jubilees to know when the next year of Jubilee year is, after the 2023 is very near. And it is also, this next Jubilee is going to be the 70th Jubilee from when the Israelites entered into the Promised Land. It's all about redemption. It's all about the year of his redeemed has come. Data point number 2, Jeremiah 52 verse 28. Quote, this is the people whom Nebuchadnezzar carried away captive in the 7th year, 3,023 Yahudim. Jeremiah 52:28 records the Babylonian captivity of when King Jehoiachin was captured, that it happened in the 7th year of the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar, as I just read. So right here, this event happened in the 7th year of King Nebuchadnezzar. Just some side note, here's the second Babylonian tablet that I'm going to share with you, the Babylonian Chronicle tablet, aka the Nebuchadnezzar Chronicle. And this tablet records the first Babylonian siege of Jerusalem and the captivity of King Jehoiachin to the 7th year of King Nebuchadnezzar's reign. And amazingly, it confirms the record of Jeremiah 52, verse 28. So the book of Jeremiah is very reliable. Here is an extra biblical source on this hard tablet recording this event. Here you see on the Wikipedia page right here, it records the siege of Jerusalem. Chronicle does not directly mention Jerusalem, but it mentions a city of Yahudu, and it's interpreted to be the city of Judah. And the Chronicle states, in the 7th year, implied of Nebuchadnezzar, in the month Kislev, the king of Babylon assembled his army, and after he had invaded the land of Hattai, Turkey and Syria, he laid siege to the city of Judah. On the 2nd day of the month of Adar, he conquered the city and took the king, Jeconiah, which is Jehoiachin, prisoner. And he installed a king in his place, King Zedekiah, of his own choice. And after he had received rich tribute, he sent forth to Babylon. This tablet confirms biblical history of Jeremiah 52, verse 28, in the 7th year of King Nebuchadnezzar. And that is right here. That's why you see that tablet right here. It confirms Jeremiah 52, 28. Data point number 3 that is needed is Jeremiah 52, verse 29. In the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar, he carried away captive from Jerusalem 832 persons. So here it records 18th year of King Nebuchadnezzar.
And this second captivity of Nebuchadnezzar that happened in the 18th year is the captivity when Nebuchadnezzar destroyed Jerusalem.
This is when Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem and the city. And here you have it right here, 18th year of King Nebuchadnezzar. So now we know from Ezekiel chapter 40, verse 1, that this year is dated, it's anchor dated to in the 14th year after the temple was destroyed, which was the 18th year of King Nebuchadnezzar. And Ezekiel 40, verse 1 is also anchor dated to this event right here of King Jehoiachin, or King Jehoiachin / Jeconiah's captivity, which happened in the 7th year of King Nebuchadnezzar. And this is anchor dated as in the 25th year of the captivity. So now, if we get a BC year date for one of these events of King Nebuchadnezzar, for King Nebuchadnezzar's reign, we can know when this event happened. And that information to date the BC year of the reign is found on this tablet, data point number 4, which is Babylonian tablet VAT 4956, right here. This is the key to unlock the BC years of the Old Testament by synchronizing the year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign to this astronomical signs. So Babylonian tablet VAT 4956, it contains at least 20 astronomical observations made during the 37th year of reign of King Nebuchadnezzar, and it is the key to synchronize the BC years via Astro Archeology. So this gives us the information. So what we are going to do is we're going to take the astronomical signs, put it into Stellarium to get a BC date year for the year of Nebuchadnezzar's 37th reign. So once we get the date of VAT 4956, which is the 37th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, using Stellarium and other astronomical software by identifying that year in here, we can then know the BC year for the 7th year of his reign, which is when King Jehoiachin was captured. We could also know the 18th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, when he destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. And then from these two events, we can then do a simple math equation and know the BC year of the hidden Jubilee year of Ezekiel 40, verse 1. And that's how this whole thing works. Solving the Jubilee equation of Ezekiel 40, verse 1 using Astro Archeology. Praise and acknowledgments. All praise to Yahweh Elohim, Hallelujah, for his Ruach leading me into the truth and the sources of information and giving me the simple understanding a couple years ago of how to count the Jubilee per the note in my Hebraic Roots Bible. Like I said, it's simple. If you can know one, you can know them all. And we just have to know when for certain Nebuchadnezzar's 7th year and 18th year were. And then also I want to give acknowledgments to the following sources of my information listed in the chronological order from when I came in to receive the information. Acknowledgments don't equal endorsements. Step 1, synchronizing Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year to a BC year. And as I shared, tablet VAT 4956 records the observable astronomical signs of Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year of reign as king. And this paper right here, Astronomical Diaries, Related Texts from Babylonia, is a translation, transcription, and commentary on this tablet. So this is the paper, Astronomical Diaries and Related Texts from Babylonia. It's 3 pages long. This is volume 1. This is regarding tablet VAT 4956.
Link to this document in the description.
Which they date negative 567, which is equivalent to 568 BC, as there is no year 0 in the BC AD dating system. You can see that on the obverse they translated that there were 19 signs or recordings for Nebuchadnezzar's. And then on the obverse says year 37 of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, month 1, the first of which was identical with the 30th of the preceding month. The moon became visible behind the bowl of heaven. Okay, and then there's text is implied, text is missing and implied. Then there's a second sign. Saturn was in front of the swallow constellation. So we have the bull constellation, Taurus. We now have number 2, Saturn was in front of the swallow. The second in the morning, a rainbow stretched in the west. Night of the 3rd, the moon was 2 cubits in the front. Text is missing. It rained, night of the 9th. And it goes on down here. But there are some concrete signs that are so unique because of the dating cycle of Saturn. That Saturn's rotation through the constellations takes 19 years to go through. That some of these are so unique, like Saturn in front of the swallow, it can only be to 1 year. Now, if you look up VAT 4956, the Jehovah's Witnesses have falsified the dating system of this tablet to 588, when really 588 BC, when really the dating is 568 BC. So they falsify it by 20 years
to fit their false fulfillments of their Jehovah's Witness prophecies, which are false.
And 568 BC is equal to year negative 567. So there's over 19 signs on the obverse, and on the reverse there's 21, and then on the lower edge there's 2, and then on the left edge there's 1. And this is their comments, and this is their conclusion. Calendar that King Nebuchadnezzar, his 37th year, began in April of negative 567. And year negative 567 is really 568 BC. So his 37th year of reign was 568 BC to 567 BC. So to share some of these signs, I'm going to go ahead and share with you this playlist that I found by a channel, Londo Malari. His name is Chris. Here I'll be playing a couple of clips from video series, which has like 30-something videos. Extremely comprehensive work. But he only has like 318 views, 637 views. This is the most excellent work explaining and documenting the signs of VAT 4956. And that the year of this tablet can be no other than year 568 BC for Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year. And his series on VAT 4956 and the fall of Jerusalem is the best on YouTube, but it is buried. And you can see it's buried because it's been out for 8 years, and there's only like, this video only has 318 views. This video only has 480. This has 371. So it's been completely buried on YouTube. And so, but it's the best that's out there. So let me go ahead and play some clips of his videos on VAT 4956 and share with you some of the signs in this video.
There is links to the videos and to the video playlist in my video description.
The ancient Babylonians were astute observers of the night sky. They meticulously studied and recorded their observations in tablets of clay. Sadly, very few of these diaries, tablets, and almanacs remain, but those that do give us a snapshot of a sky from 2,500 years ago. Observations of sun, moon, eclipses, solstices, the timings of sunsets and sunrises to moonsets and moonrises, the positions of planets against the constellations, gives us an unmistakable fingerprint that helps us synchronize the year of the reigning monarch to an absolute date in history. It is true that these ancient astronomers believed that they were recording divine messages, and at times endeavored to tie these heavenly signs to events occurring on the earth. Should these motivations deter us? Actually, just the opposite. A religious motivation meant that these astronomers would be all the more meticulous in recording what they viewed as a sacred message. It would be impossible to just fake these astronomical observations and have them turn out consistently with other observations on the same tablet or even with other astronomical tablets. And the more these diaries are examined, the more a consistent timeline can be produced, one that completely harmonizes with other evidences, such as the economical business transactions of that time period. One of the foremost astronomical diaries for the Neo-Babylonian period is VAT 4956. It contains dozens of observations dated to Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year. We know that Jerusalem was destroyed in Nebuchadnezzar's 18th regnal year.
Jeremiah 52 verse 29, in the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar, he carried away captive from Jerusalem 832 persons.
Therefore, by determining his 37th year, we can determine his 18th. For instance, if VAT 4956 points to 568 BC as the 37th year, then the 18th year would be 587 BC. One of the greatest strengths of this tablet is the planetary observations. Keep in mind that each of the 5 visible planets revolve about the Sun at different times. Saturn every 29.5 years, Jupiter roughly every 12 years, Mars every 687 days, Venus every 224 days, and Mercury every 87 days. The combination of planetary observations on VAT 4956 cannot occur again for many thousands of years. To what year do these combination of observations point? They can point only to 568 as Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year, and to no other date in recorded history. Modern chronologers point out that such a combination of astronomical positions would not be duplicated again in thousands of years, and this might seem like incontrovertible evidence. The fact is, if one analyzes VAT 4956, the planetary observations are very clear and consistent, and match the year 568 BC and no other. It could be hard to build a consistent picture for 568 BC if these observations were that ambiguous. A consistent picture emerges from this diary that matches no other year. VAT 4956 makes 568 BC an absolute date for Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year. This would make, again, his 18th year 587 BC. VAT 4956 alone shows that we cannot move Nebuchadnezzar's reign back 20 years. For a more detailed look at this astronomical diary, see Appendix 7A, B, and C. We can derive absolute dates from astronomical observations made during the reigns of these kings. These synchronize the year, month, and day of the reigning monarch to observations of the sun, moon, and planets that identify a specific date in history. These astronomical tablets form a fingerprint from the ancient sky that is unmistakable. By looking at dozens of observations on VAT 4956, we can pinpoint Nebuchadnezzar's 37th regnal year to 568 BC, making his 18th year, when Jerusalem was destroyed, 587 BC. This tablet does not allow us to move Nebuchadnezzar's reign back 20 years. But we do not have to rely on VAT 4956 alone. There are other astronomical tablets that help us establish absolute dates for the Neo-Babylonian dynasty, which in turn is the only way to synchronize the relative dating of events in Bible chronology with the historical timeline. For instance, the chronology of Nebuchadnezzar's reign is further established when we examine tablets that record lunar eclipses. LBAT 1420 reports lunar eclipses in the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. It contains not only predictions that ancient astronomers made beforehand, but also detailed observations of lunar eclipses. While VAT 4956 contains dozens of observations that pertain to one year, year 37, LBAT 420 contains dozens of lunar eclipses that span from Nebuchadnezzar's first year all the way up to his 29th year. This list of lunar eclipses yield 36 absolute dates that cannot belong to any other period of history. It does not allow Nebuchadnezzar's reign to budge an inch, much less 20 years. It only confirms the conclusion that we've already confirmed from VAT 4956, that Nebuchadnezzar's first year was 604 BC, making his 18th year 587 BC. But there's more. LBAT 1421 lists 2 lunar eclipses in month 6 and month 12 for year 42 of Nebuchadnezzar. These eclipses yield 2 absolute dates, tying year 42 to 563 BC. LBAT 1419 lists 2 eclipses for year 14 and year 32 of Nebuchadnezzar. Year 14 matches up to be 591 BC, and year 32, 573 BC. Again, this forms a picture of Nebuchadnezzar's reign that harmonizes perfectly with VAT 4956 and the previously discussed lunar eclipse tablets. A consistent picture emerges. Between these 4 tablets, we can find absolute dates for over half of Nebuchadnezzar's 43 years of rule. There is even an observation tied to his 18th year, once again confirming that it is indeed 587 BC. Nebuchadnezzar's reign is so fixed by absolute dates from the astronomical record that we cannot move back his reign a year, much less 20 years. FAT 4956 is a list of astronomical observations made in Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year of rule. Some 19 years earlier, in his 18th year, Nebuchadnezzar destroyed Jerusalem. By determining the absolute date of that 37th year, we can determine not only when Jerusalem was destroyed, but put the entire Neo-Babylonian chronology on firm footing. If year 37 points to 568 BC, Jerusalem was destroyed in 587 BC. This diary contains observations of the sun, moon, and 5 visible planets, and their positions relative to the background constellations. There are many dozens of observations that form a unique fingerprint, for these observations could only occur once in many thousands of years. This cosmic fingerprint points to the year 568 BC as Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year, which would make his 18th year the year of Jerusalem's destruction, 587 BC. Let us consider a few observations to see why we can be so confident that this diary points to 568 BC and only 568 BC. Side 1, Line 1. Year 37 of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Month 1, the first of which was identical with the 30th of the preceding month. The moon became visible behind the bowl of heaven. This observation is nothing to write home about. However, it does identify that the first day of the first month of Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year has begun. On the Babylonian calendar, this would be Nisan the 1st, which occurs with the appearance of the first new moon after the spring equinox. On our calendar, the spring equinox was on March 27th, and over the following weeks, the moon waxed and waned, and here we've come to the time when we see the first sliver of the new moon in the evening sky on April 22nd, 568 BC. The moon becomes visible behind the bowl of heaven, that is, in a constellation called Taurus. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but if we count ahead 2 full months and 9 days into the 3rd month, we come to the summer solstice. Later on in line 16, we indeed find that the summer solstice was in the 3rd month on the 9th day. Therefore, right from the start, we've established that line 1 points to April 22nd, 568 BC, at sundown. Line 2. Saturn was in front of the swallow. We are still in the 1st month, on the 1st day of the month, on the Babylonian calendar. On our calendar, it is now April 23rd. Remember that the Babylonian day went from sundown to sundown, not midnight to midnight. The day started on the sundown of the 22nd and would end on the sundown of the 23rd. We see that indeed Saturn was in front of the constellation the Babylonians called the swallow. The swallow corresponds to a combination of parts of what we call Pisces and Pegasus. The swallow comes up several times in this diary. In line 9, on side 2, line 5, where we find the moon, in line 17, side 2, and on side 2, line 19, where we not only find Saturn, but Venus and Mercury as well. Consistently in all these instances, the swallow corresponds to what we call Pisces and Pegasus. Saturn revolves around the sun every 29.5 years, and from our viewpoint moves very slowly across the sky. So throughout year 37, that is 568 BC, it stayed in front of the swallow. Line 2 points to April 23rd, 568 BC, for indeed, at that time, Saturn was in front of the swallow. Side 1, line 4, 12th, Jupiter's acronical rising. Acronical means occurring at sunset, and indeed, on the 12th of the 1st month, Jupiter rose around sunset, and this is a good match for what is on our calendar, May 3rd, 568 BC. Side 1, line 4, on the 14th, one god was seen with the other. Sunrise to moonset, 4 degrees. On the 14th day of the 1st month, that is, the morning of May 6, 568 BC, one god was seen with the other. That is, the sun was rising in the east as the moon was setting in the west. They were both seen at once, and as you can see in the screenshot, indeed they were. More importantly, this tablet records the difference between sunrise and moonset, 4 degrees. This is the first instance on this tablet of a series of observations called the lunar threes. These are measurements from sunrise to moonset, from sunset to moonset, and to moonrise to sunrise. Here, the difference between sunrise to moonset is 4 degrees. Each degree represents 4 minutes. Therefore, 4 minutes times 4 degrees is 16 minutes. Therefore, we can expect that the difference between the time the sun rose until the moon set was 16 minutes. Skyview Cafe is a perfect tool to confirm these measurements. Here I set the time to minus 567, which is another way of representing 568 BC, and set the day to May 6. I set the coordinates to those close to ancient Babylon, and set the time to the Baghdad time zone. Here I used the tables feature to give me the hard numbers. Here we find that the sun rose at 5:12 a.m. and the moon set at 5:27. This is a difference of 15 minutes. Considering that the folks in ancient Babylon didn't have as precise tools to measure these things as we do today, this is pretty darn close to the 4 degrees or 16 minutes we were expecting. We can consider this a match. The observation points to May 6, 568 BC. 12. Month 12, the first, of which followed the 30th of the preceding month. The moon became visible behind Aries, while the sun stood there. Sunset to moonset, 25 degrees. This works out to be the evening of March 14th. 567 BC. While the sun was setting, the new moon appeared in the Aries constellation. Line 12 also reports another lunar 3, from sunset to moonset, 25 degrees, which works out to be a 100-minute interval. In Skyview Cafe for this date, we find that sunset was at 1804 and moonset was at 1948, a difference of 104 minutes, or 26 degrees, which is only 1 degree more than what was reported by VAT 4956, a very close match. Line 13, night of the second. The moon was balanced 4 cubits below Eta Tauri. The second day of the 12th month worked out to be March 15th, 567 BC. As we can see from the screenshot, the moon was below or south of Eta Tauri, which is a star in the Pleiades. Line 16, the 12th. One god was seen with the other. Sunrise to moonset, 1 degrees, 30 minutes. Month 12, day 12 works out to be March 26, 567 BC. From the sky chart of this date, we can see that the sun and moon made a brief appearance in the sky at the same time. The sun rose as the moon set, and line 16 records a lunar 3 of 1 degree, 30 minutes. An interval of 6 minutes from sunrise to moonset. When we go into Skyview Cafe, we find that the sun rose at 6:06. And the moon set at 6:08, a difference of 2 minutes, which works out to be half of a degree. Therefore, the difference between the observation on VAT 4956 and what we've computed here is little more than a degree, which is so close we can consider this a good match. During that same time period, we read, Mercury was in front of the band of the swallow, a half cubit below Venus. Mercury having passed 8 fingers to the east, when it became visible, it was bright and already high. Saturn was balanced 6 fingers above Mercury, and 3 fingers below Venus. This is where things start to get really interesting. Saturn, of course, is in front of the swallow, or what we now today call Pisces and Pegasus. As Saturn orbits the sun every 29.5 years, its apparent motion across the sky is very slow. It's been in front of the swallow from the very beginning of Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year. However, now we find that Venus and Mercury are also in front of the swallow. Here, the scribe records the positions of all 3 planets relative to each other, as well as to the swallow. And as we can see in the sky chart, they're very close. The reason these planets all grouped together was because the Earth and Mercury and Venus and Saturn were all aligning and would remain aligned for a number of days. Therefore, this is another observation that solidly locks Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year to 568 to 567 BC. There are more observations in this astronomical diary than what we've covered here. For time's sake, what we've covered should be enough, hopefully more than enough, to demonstrate that Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year started in 568 BC, which would mean his 18th year, the year Jerusalem was destroyed, was 587 BC. Appendix 7, however, is not meant to be an end to your research on the matter, but only the beginning. You have the tools at your fingertips, and you've seen these tools in action. Now is the time for you to go and confirm these things for yourself.
So there you have it. Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year synchronizes to year 568 to 567 BC, which is the regnal year of Babylon, and the Babylonian calendar for the regnal year was been months 1 through 12, and month 1 starting on the new moon after the spring equinox. So now right here, we can go ahead and insert the date of 568 to 567 BC for the 37th year of King Nebuchadnezzar. And now with this key, we can now unlock the other dates of Nebuchadnezzar's 7th year and 18th year, which is what we're going to do next in step 2. We're going to identify the BC years of King Nebuchadnezzar's 7th year and King Nebuchadnezzar's 18th year, right here on this table that I have. Here you have the year VAT 4956, Nebuchadnezzar's 37th year, year 568 to 567 BC. We count up his 18th year, which was year 587 to 586 BC, and it was in his 18th year that King Nebuchadnezzar carried away captive from Jerusalem 832 people. That was Jeremiah 52, verse 29. And so we have the date for
the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem and of the temple.
And then also count back to his 7th year of reign. It brings us to year 598 to 597 BC. This is the people whom Nebuchadnezzar carried away in his 7th year, 3,000 Yahudim and 23. So that was when King Jehoiachin was taken. So there you have it. It's that simple. It's this simple, guys. This is how simple it is. So now I just gave you the dates of the 18th year, 587 to 586 BC. Okay, Jerusalem was destroyed in 587 BC, and which was the 18th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, and then also in the 7th year of King Nebuchadnezzar to 598 to 597 BC, we have the Babylonian captivity of King Jehoiachin and Ezekiel among the 3,023 Yahudim. So, wow. Step 3, identifying the BC year of the hidden Jubilee year of Ezekiel 40 verse 1, right here. And because we have these two dates, we can now count forward to the 25th year
of the captivity
and in the 14th year after the destruction of Jerusalem. And before we count that, I want to make an important note about calendar year distinctions, because there's several different calendar years being used. Jeremiah recorded Nebuchadnezzar's reign in Jeremiah 52, 28 to 29 using the Babylonian regnal year. The Babylonian regnal year was on the Babylonian lunar calendar and started in the spring, the month of Adar. And the month of Adar began on the first new moon after the spring equinox. Okay, that's the Babylonian calendar, the ancient Babylonian lunar calendar. Ezekiel, he memorialized his prophecies by the year of the captivity of King Jehoiachin. And Ezekiel used the regnal year of Judah, which I will prove. Judah's regnal year on Yahweh Elohim's 364-day calendar starts on the first day of the 7th month, which is Yom Teruah, also called Rosh Hashanah, which is the beginning of the fall. Judah's regnal year is also the agricultural calendar year, of which is also the Shemitah and the Sanctified Jubilee are on. So the Shemitah count and the Sanctified Jubilee year are on the agricultural year calendar. I have a video that explains this from the agricultural clues mentioned and the order of events mentioned in Leviticus chapter 25. And if you link to this video on the agricultural year in my video description. Thus, it is important to understand the BC year chronologies of Jeremiah and Ezekiel are offset by about 6 months, as the Babylonian calendar and Yahweh Elohim's 364-day solar calendar is offset by about 6 months. Can't say 6 months perfectly because the months of Yahweh Elohim's 364-day calendar their days are 30, 30, 31, 30, 30, 31, 30, 30, 31, and it's set, while the Babylonian lunar calendar, the month can be, like 28, 29, or 30 days, depending on the moon cycle. So they're offset by about 6 months. And then you have the additional month. Once every 3 years, you have the additional moon that needs to catch up to
the spring equinox,
the calendar. So that's why they're different there. So Ezekiel, as I shared, he used the regnal year of Judah,
of months 7 through 6.
And Ezekiel memorialized his prophecies by the year of the captivity of King Jehoiachin. The key to understand Ezekiel's usage of the regnal year of Judah is found in Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 21. Ezekiel 33:21, quote, "And it came to pass in the 12th year of our captivity, in the 10th month, in the 5th day of the month, that one that had escaped out of Jerusalem came unto me, saying, the city is smitten." Okay, the city was captured. So this is when the Babylonians destroyed the city. we know Jerusalem was captured on the 9th day of the 4th month. And we know that Jerusalem was burned down on the 10th day of the 5th month in the 11th year of the captivity. So these events happened in the 11th year of the captivity. We know that from Ezekiel chapter 40, verse 1, the key verse of the Jubilee. The escapee that came to Ezekiel in Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 21, came to him in the 12th year, is likely, more than likely, he has to be among those recorded of Jeremiah chapter 39, verse 9. Quote, "Then Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried away captive into Babylon, the remnant of the people that remained in the city, and those that fell away, that fell to him, with the rest of the people that remained." Thus, it is very logical for Ezekiel to receive such important news of the destruction of Jerusalem of Ezekiel 33:21 in 5 months' time from the destruction of Jerusalem, not 17 months. Thus, for this to have happened 5 months later and be in the 12th year of the captivity means that the year of the captivity turned from the 11th year of the captivity 5 months later to the 12th year of the captivity, which happens in the 7th month. Thus, Ezekiel is chronologizing
The captivity of King Jehoiachin
according to the regnal year of Judah.
As a side note for reference regarding a trip and how long it takes from Babylon to Jerusalem, here in Ezra 7 verse 9, this is just a recap of the verse, but if you read the verse, you can see for yourself that Ezra left Babylon on the first day of the 1st month with the articles of the temple by the decree of Artaxerxes to bring them back to Jerusalem, and that Ezra arrived in Jerusalem on the 1st day of the 5th month. So that trip only took 4 months. And went right at the beginning of the trip, Ezra stayed a few days by a river and fasted, and we don't know what else went on with the trip. So it was less than 4 months. So it's totally plausible that Ezekiel received the news in 5 months' time on the 10th day of the 5th month after the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem.
And here is a table for that real quick to help you understand that. "And it came to pass in the 12th year of our captivity, in the 10th month, in the 5th day of the month, that one had escaped out of Jerusalem, saying unto me, the city is smitten." So here we see the 11th year of the captivity, 12th year of the captivity, 13th year of the captivity. These are the months that are in the these are the months. And then here we have the 18th year of King Nebuchadnezzar. So we know in the 18th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, and his year cycle was from months 1 through 12, we know that in this year, in the 18th year, was when Jerusalem was destroyed, captured in the 4th month, destroyed in the 5th month.
And we know from basic math of Ezekiel 40 verse 1 that 25 minus 14 is 11. So the destruction happened in the 11th year of the captivity.
Ezekiel received notice from the escapee that Jerusalem had been destroyed in the 10th month
of the 12th year of the captivity.
Thus, 1 month, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he received the news on the 5th day of the 10th month right here. When? In the 12th year of our captivity. So the year of the captivity changed right here at the beginning of the 7th month was the beginning of the 12th year of the captivity. So again, we know that Jerusalem fell in the 11th year via Ezekiel 40 verse 1. And we know it fell in the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar via Jeremiah 52:29. So 5 months makes total sense for Ezekiel to get the news. If Ezekiel were to get the news in 17 months after the destruction, it makes no sense and it's way too long. So if this is the year of the captivity, the same months 1 through 12, and it lines up like this, then
the 10th month of
the 12th year of the captivity would have been way over here, and thus it would have been 17 months from the time of destruction of the Jerusalem to Ezekiel got the news. And back then, that makes no sense. It's just way too long of a time period for him to get it. So therefore, Ezekiel was chronologizing the year of the captivity according to the regnal year of Judah,
which is the calendar year, the Shaneh, that the Jubilee, the sanctified Jubilee, is on.
Also important to note, I want to draw your attention to some differences between Ezekiel 40 verse 1 in the Masoretic Aramaic text versus the Greek Septuagint Ezekiel 40 verse 1. There is a difference here that I'm very well aware of, and I want to make sure that you know that I do think that the Greek Septuagint, the Torah, the first 5 books, the Pentateuch, is superior to the Masoretic text, the Masoretic Torah. Okay, but in the case of Ezekiel, the Masoretic Ezekiel is superior versus the Greek Septuagint. The Greek Septuagint Ezekiel is corrupted.
The Greek Septuagint Ezekiel is missing
about 16% of the text from the Masoretic text. Also, the LXX Greek Septuagint has also misplaced verses of the Masoretic text, and the DSS, the Dead Sea Scrolls, actually confirm the Masoretic Ezekiel over the Greek Septuagint Ezekiel. But here in Ezekiel 40 verse 1, it said it happened at the beginning of the year, which is Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, okay, on the 10th day of the month. The Aramaic Bible, the Aramaic, also is translated at the first of the year, the head of the year, on the 10th of the month, while the Greek Septuagint has it in the first month, on the 10th day of the month. So there are some differences there, but also the fact that how this Ezekiel 40 verse 1 hidden Jubilee lines up with the entrance of the Israelites into the land of Canaan, according to the rest of the Bible chronology, it definitely confirms that the Masoretic Ezekiel is the superior and more truer Ezekiel than the LXX, Greek Septuagint. So now we need to get the date of Ezekiel 40 verse 1 by just counting. So now that I have established that Ezekiel is counting the captivity using the regnal years of Judah, which is the same count that the Jubilee count is on. Therefore, we can now find the year of the hidden Jubilee. So here's the table that I made for that. Link to this table in the description. All right, 598 to 597 BC, here in the 12th month, around March, what we would call March, right before the spring equinox, 597 BC, that was the first year of the captivity of King Jehoiachin, Jeconiah, and the 3,023 of Yehudim exiled to Babylon. So that siege
ended
in the 12th month, according to the Babylonian Chronicle.
Judah's
regnal year, 598 to 597 BC. On the 10th day of the 5th month was when Babylon destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. That would have been around July 587 BC. The year would have been fall 588 to fall 587 BC. So now you can see, if this is year 1, this is in the 25th year. In the 25th year of the captivity was right here. It just started. And in the 14th year after the destruction of Jerusalem. So we can do the math. All right, in the 14th year after the destruction of Jerusalem, Jerusalem happened right here on the 11th during this year. Okay, right here, this is where Jerusalem happened. So now let me go ahead and count in the 14th year after the city was destroyed. So the city was destroyed during this year. So this is year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So the 14th year just started right here at the beginning. On the first day of the 7th month is when the 14th year of the captivity started. So in the 14th year after the city. So it wasn't in counting this year, it's in the 14th year after. So that's not year 1. This year had the destruction in it, so the year following would start it. This would be year 1, which means in the 14th year after is right here, which is also in the 25th year of the captivity. So the captivity is on the regnal year of Judah, which is what we used for the Jubilee year of Ezekiel 40 verse 1. So there you have it. The Jubilee year of Ezekiel 40 verse 1 is 574 BC to 573 BC, starting on the 10th day of the 7th month of 574 BC. Hallelujah. So there you have it in the 25th year of the captivity, right here, year number 25, just started right here, which is also in the 14th year after, starting from after the year of the destruction. There you have it. 574 BC, on the 10th day of the 7th month, 574 BC, was when the Jubilee year began through 573 BC. Hallelujah. So we plug that in. So like I said, there's only 4 data points to unlock the Jubilee count. We put that right in. And now step 4, now that we have this year of 574 BC, all we have to do is count Jubilees to the next Jubilee year that happens after 2023. But before I count that Jubilee forward to prove it to you when it is, you first need to know how long the Jubilee year is and how to count it, because there's 2 different ways that people say to count it, but only one way is correct. In my video over 3 years ago, I explained from the Book of Jubilees that even though the Jubilee is the 50th year, the Shemitah cycle on which the Jubilee is counted is only consecutive 49-year-long periods and not consecutive 50-year-long periods. Here's a quick clip. So yes, the Jubilee year is the 50th year, and in my video from about a year ago, I explained from the Book of Jubilees that even though the Jubilee is the 50th year, the Shemitah cycle on which the Jubilee is counted is only consecutive 49-year-long periods and not consecutive 50-year-long periods, as I will demonstrate. So again, here's the Shemitah cycle. It's 49 years. Here's the Sabbath year, why it's called the Shemitah. It's the year of release. And here is the wrong cycle. Many have wrongly supposed that the 50th year Jubilee is a divider year or a buffer year of the 49-year cycle. So you see 49 years right here, then you see the 50th year, then you see another 49 years, then you see a 50th year. They think that when you count the Shemitah Jubilee cycle, that it's 50 years plus 50 years plus 50 years plus 50 years plus 50 years, but this counting period is wrong. This is not how you would reckon the years to count, to understand, to find the 70th Jubilee when the kingdom of heaven is going to come to earth. This is wrong. You will not be able to count the 70th Jubilee by using 50-year blocks. And I'm going to go ahead and prove it to you from the Book of Jubilees using simple math to understand that a Jubilee is a repeated 49-year cycle in length and not repeated 50-year cycles in length, as is confused by many. So Noah lived 950 years, according to Jubilees chapter 10, verse 15 through 16. And Noah slept with his fathers and was buried on Mount Lubar in the land of Ararat 950 years. He completed in his life 19 Jubilees and 2 weeks and 5 years. So if you were to assume that a Jubilee is 50 years long, 19 Jubilees times 50 equals 950 years. Two weeks of years is 14 years and then 5 years. So 950 years plus 14 years plus 5 years is 969 years, not the 950 years that the text says. Now, if you were to assume a Jubilee is 49 years, 19 times 49 is 931 years, plus the 14 years, plus the 5 years, it equals 950 years as the text says. In Jubilees chapter 23, verse 8 to 9, Abraham lived 175 years, and Abraham lived 3 Jubilees and 4 weeks of years, 175 years, and completed all the days of his life, being old and full of days. So assuming that a Jubilee is 50 years long, 3 times 50 is 150, plus 4 weeks, which is 4 times 7 years, which is 28 years, 150 plus 28 equals 178 years. Not 175 years as the text says. But if you were to use a 49-year Jubilee, 3 times 49 is 147, plus the 28 years equals 175 years, just like the text says. And lastly, Jubilees chapter 45, verse 13, and Jacob, Israel, lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, and all the days which he lived were 3 Jubilees, 147 years. So 3 times 50 is 150 years, not 147 as the text says. 3 times 49 is 147 years, just as the text says.
So this is the most easiest one. You could also go 147 divided by 3 Jubilees. It equals 49 years per Jubilee. So that is how you would count the Jubilee cycle. It's 49 years in length, which is the length of the Shemitah cycle, not 50 years in length. So this means that the 50th year Jubilee is the first year of the next 49-year Shemitah cycle. So here you have a 49-year Shemitah cycle, and the 50th year is the first year of the next cycle. That means that the first year of the 49-year cycle is a Jubilee year, and I'll demonstrate from the book of Joshua in this video that the very first year the Israelites entered into the land and the Shemitah count started, it was a Jubilee. It was when in their battle of Jericho, they were called to blow the Jubilee horn. And that's what the priests were carrying, with a Jubilee horn. They had 7 of them, very similar like the 7 trumpets of Revelation. So the correct Jubilee Shemitah cycle count, the Jubilee cycle length is actually the counting of the 49-year Shemitah cycle. 49 years plus 49 years plus 49 years plus 49 years plus 49 years. So now that we understand this, we can now count the 70th Jubilee correctly to understand when the kingdom of heaven is going to be coming to earth. So now that you know that the Jubilee is counted in consecutive 49-year periods, let's count the Jubilee years forward to the next Jubilee. So here I am on this table. The link to this spreadsheet is in the description with all the other links in the description, the Restored Israelite Jubilee count. So here I am right here, and I'll go ahead and pull out a calculator, and we'll just count this just to verify it to make sure that I have it correct. Now remember, when we cross from BC to AD dating, there's no year 0.
BC AD.
So because there's no such year as year 0, I will have to add a year in this row to offset year 0. So let me go ahead now and get out the calculator. So you can go ahead and follow along as we count down the Jubilees right here in the left column. I'll go ahead and put the calculator right here. You could just follow along. So I'm going to be adding 49 years to each one. Next one's going to be 525, 476, 427, 378, 329, 280, 231, 182, 133, 84, 35. Now we're crossing that threshold. Okay, so we crossed that threshold. I have to add 1 year because to offset for year 0. Okay, we're now at 15. Okay, AD. We crossed that BC threshold at AD, 15 AD. I'm now going to add 49 for the next one. All right, 64, 113, 162, 211, 260, 309. Okay, right here, 309, 358, 407, 456, 505, 554, 603, 652, 701, 750, 799, 848, 897, 946, 995, 1044, 1093, 1142, 1191, 1240. Okay, we're right here, 1240, 1289, 1338, 1387, 1436, 1485, 1534, which is very important because in this Jubilee year was when possibly Sultan Suleiman decreed the walls of Jerusalem to be rebuilt, according per Daniel 9:25. I'll come back to that later. So we're right here. 1583, 1632, 1681, 1730, 1779, 1828, 1877, 1926, 1975, and the next Jubilee year after 2023 is the year 2024 through 2025. And it is also the 70th Jubilee from when the Israelites entered the Promised Land. This is the 70th Jubilee. Even though it says 71, it's really the 70th Jubilee, as I'll go back and share with you. So there you have it. The next year of Jubilee is year 2024 through 2025. It's going to start on the 10th day of the 7th month, 2024. Only 4 data points are needed to unlock the Jubilee count.
Hallelujah. And now that we've established that Jubilee count here, we can also count back to see if it's on schedule of when the Israelites crossed the Jordan. We can now verify the Jubilee. Step 5, verify the Jubilee count counting backwards. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and count backwards to see when it lines up. All right, and I'm going to subtract 49 years now. 623 BC, 672 BC, 721, 770, 819, 868, 917, 966, 1015, 1064, 1113, 1162, 1211, 1260, 1309, 1358, 1407 through 1406 is the year that the Israelites entered in and crossed the Jordan, Canaan, and that's when they had the Battle of Jericho with the Jubilee horns, and it was year number 1 of 49 of the first Jubilee cycle. The first Jubilee happened right here. This would have been the first Jubilee right here, and the next one, as I said, is the 70th Jubilee. Even though it says 71, this wasn't the first Jubilee. This was the entrance into the land of Canaan, but according to the Book of Jubilees, it was a Jubilee. According to the Dead Sea Scrolls, it was a Jubilee, as the Jubilee count preceded the Israelite count of Jubilees. And if you look up when the Israelites crossed into Jordan, if you're familiar with New Chronology, and you put in 1406 BC, crossed the Jordan, this is when the Israelites crossed the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month in 1406 BC. Ezekiel 40 verse 1, being the Jubilee year, it synchronizes with the Jubilee count with the entrance into the land of Canaan. One of the top chronologists out there, Roger Young, who made a small correction to Edwin Teal's work, he has the entrance into Canaan in spring 1406 BC and the fall of Jerusalem in 587 BC. I'm going to be coming back to Roger Young because what I just explained to you, not including VAT 4956, but using Ezekiel 40 verse 1 as the Jubilee and synchronizing the Jubilee count, well, what I shared with you, I did this independently by the Ruach HaKodesh, leading me in a simple truth. But Roger Young did it independently like 15 years ago. I'll be sharing his articles. So on account of 2 people doing this, other people probably have done this as well. It's very simple to count, but it lines up with the entry into Canaan. So Roger Young, he previously used Ezekiel chapter 40 verse 1, and he also restored the Jubilee cycle in 2008. Syncs with what I just did and what I did 2 years ago. And links to Roger Young's work
in the video description.
3 proofs it was a Jubilee year when Israel crossed the Jordan into Canaan. Dead Sea Scroll 4Q379, fragment 12. The Book of Jubilees, chapter 50, verse 1 through 4. And the Book of Joshua, the Hebrew word Yobel, and the Jubilee theme of Joshua's conquest. Proof 1, Dead Sea Scroll 4Q379, aka called the Apocryphon of Joshua. 4 months ago in my studying and personal reading of the Dead Sea Scrolls, I came across the following verse that supports the Jubilee count of Roger Young and myself. Hallelujah. And anybody else that dated the Jubilee, that did this with Ezekiel 40 verse 1. Obviously, I wasn't the first. Roger Young did it before me. Other independents might have also have done this. But here it says, text is missing, the waters implied, which come down. The text is missing. The waters which come down stood piled up. Text is missing. The sons of Israel crossed over when it was dry in the first month of the 41st year of their departure from the land of Egypt. It was the year of Jubilees at the start of their entry into the land of Canaan. And the Jordan was full with water towards all its banks, and it flooded with its water from the month, text is missing, until the month of the wheat harvest. Text is missing. So there you have it. This Apocryphon of Joshua states that it was a Jubilee year at the start of their entry into the land of Canaan.
In the first month, in the 41st year of their departure from the land of Egypt.
Proof 2, it was a Jubilee year. The Book of Jubilees, chapter 50, verse 1 through 4. After this law I made known to thee the days of the Sabbaths in the desert of Sinai, which is between Elim and Sinai. And I told thee of the Sabbaths of the land on Mount Sinai. And I told thee of the Jubilee years and the Sabbaths of years, but the year thereof have I not told thee, till ye enter the land which you are to possess. And the land also shall keep its Sabbaths while they dwell upon it, and they shall know the Jubilee year. Wherefore I have ordained for thee the year weeks, and the years and the Jubilees. There are 49 Jubilees from the days of Adam until this day, and 1 week in 2 years.
1 week and 2 years is 9 years in. So right now they are 9 years into the next Jubilee cycle, which according to the Book of Jubilees is the 50th Jubilee. But they need 40 years still to get to that Jubilee.
And there are yet 40 years to come, literally distant for learning the commandments of Yahweh, until they pass over into the land of Canaan, crossing the Jordan to the west. So here you have it. It said that there were 9 years into the Jubilee when he got this on Mount Sinai, and there's 40 years to cross the Jordan into the west. So that means that after 49 years, they would cross in when? In the 50th year.
And the 50th year is the Jubilee year. It's the first year of the next 49-year cycle, and that this would have been year number 41 at the beginning of year 41 from when they left the land of Egypt, just as I read previously in proof number 1 of the Dead Sea Scroll of Joshua Apocryphon. It said that in the first month, in the 41st year after leaving the land of Egypt.
Proof 3. In my video 2 years ago, I presented proof from the book of Joshua that it was a Jubilee year, as the authors and or Joshua secretly encoded it into the text. Joshua chapter 6 of the Battle of Jericho contains the Hebrew word Jubilee 6 times, almost more than any other chapter in the Bible. Joshua chapter 6 is the last time the word Jubilee, Strong's H3104, is used in the Bible.
The Hebrew word Yobel is not used again in Chronicles or Kings or in the Psalms or in the Prophets or even in the New Testament or in the book of Revelation. The word Jubilee is not used again after the book of Joshua chapter 6.
The seventh theme of the Battle of Jericho, you had 7 priests, 7 Jubilee horns, 7 days, and on the 7th day, 7 laps around Jericho. And lastly, the theme of Joshua's conquest of the Israelites getting the promised land is in the theme of Jubilee.
The land going to its rightful owner. So it's obvious right here when you see all of this information that the year of Jubilee was secretly encoded by the authors of the book of Joshua into the text. And there's no doubt about it. And therefore, the chronology lines up with the Jubilee year of Ezekiel 40 verse 1, and then with the next Jubilee being 2024. The Dead Sea Scroll, Joshua Apocryphon, verifies this. The Book of Jubilees also supports this.
So it was definitely a Jubilee year. So here we're looking at the chronological events of the Book of Joshua. Chapter 3, they crossed the Jordan. Chapter 4, they camped at Gilgal and set up the 12 stones. Chapter 5, circumcision and the Passover in the plains of Jericho. Chapter 6, the Battle of Jericho. Chapter 7, defeat Ai, the sin of Achan. Chapter 8, the conquest of Ai, and then they did the covenant of blessings and curses on Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. Chapter 9, they were deceived by the Gibeonites, and then in chapter 10, we had 5 kings war against the Gibeonites, and then we had Joshua's long day. So while all this is going on, it was a Jubilee year. And that leads me into the Astro Archeological evidence of Joshua's long day. I'm going to use astronomical evidence to support that that this event happened in 1406 BC. Astro Archeological evidence, the Israelites crossed the Jordan in 1406 BC in Joshua's long day. So you got 2 screen grabs right here. In my video from over 5 years ago in June 2018, I explained that the sun and the moon were on the same latitude during Joshua's long day. In the video, I speculated that the sun and moon were setting up for a solar eclipse. About 2 years later, I would then be introduced to David Roll's New Chronology, who he also identified the solar eclipse of 1406 BC as happening on Joshua's long day, thus confirming my hypothesis. Hallelujah. My hypothesis 5 years ago, over 5 years ago, when I saw the sun and the sun and the moon where they were positioned. In 1406 BC, during the Jubilee year, there was a solar eclipse just after Joshua's long day, likely only 2 days after Joshua's long day, as I will prove. Here's a screen grab of NASA of the model of where the eclipse would have been, and as you can see, it was passing just north. The line of totality was passing just north over Israel. It says it happened on year negative 1405, July 14th. But there's no such year as 0 BC. So therefore, 1406 BC is the same year as year negative 1405. So you can see the path of totality. The total solar eclipse was about 1 to 2 days after Joshua's long day, and that total solar eclipse happened on July 14th of Jubilee year 1406 BC. All right, this is the Stellarium software, and I'm at Tel Gibeon. I put in the coordinates of Gibeon as the location. I set the date to year negative 1405, which is equivalent to 1406 BC. Turned it to July, the 7th month, and now I'm on the 12th day. Joshua was likely in Gibeon on this day, and he said for the sun to stand still upon Gibeon and moon over the valley, in the valley of Ajalon. So this is about, I'm not a mathematician, but Valley of Elion just is only 20 kilometers west of Gibeon. So it looks something like this. And the moon, and it says in Joshua 10 that the sun stood still in the midst of heaven. That means that it was at its zenith. So midday, it was like due south. So right now the sun is in the midst of the heavens. It's at zenith. So solar noon about, okay? And the moon was over the valley of Ajalon. So this is what I project that it looks like. So this is the 12th. Now, if it was on the 11th, the moon would have been way over here. Could it have been on July 11th when Joshua's long day happened? Sure, could have been 3 days before. I doubt that it was 4 days before, but it could have been anywhere between the 10th, July 10th to July 12th. It seems like it's logical. So let me go back to the 12th. I think that this is possibly the day. And when you're looking up, so the sun is at solar noon. It stood in the midst of heaven. That means it's in the zenith. And it stood there all day. And now I'm going to go ahead and look up to see what Joshua saw. Like this. So the sun was overhead. So here's what Joshua saw. He looked up. He saw the sun here. Sun stands still over Gibeon. Moon over the valley of Ajalon. So maybe it was the 11th with the moon over here, over the valley of Ajalon, where he saw the moon stand. But the sun would have been directly above head, almost directly above head, when this event happened, which is very rare considering how north the sun would have been during that time period. So just something to consider here for Joshua's long day. So I'll go ahead and fast forward now to the 14th. And as you can see, it's setting up for that eclipse. And I'll bring us in on that eclipse. There we go. It's starting to get darker. And the eclipse is happening at about this time. You can see Venus right there. And I'll zoom in. Okay, this is the eclipse of 1406 BC. Joshua's long day occurred around July 10th, 11th, or 12th, 1406 BC. Important to understand and learn from the past Jubilee year of 1407 to 1406 BC, when the Israelites entered into the Holy Land, to understand possibly what will likely happen in the future, or a type of it, on the 70th Jubilee and what leading up to it. So here is my timeline of what would have been the 50th Jubilee, according to the Book of Jubilees, of the year when the Israelites crossed the Jordan, the Jubilee year of 1407 to 1406 BC. A lot of people say, hey, the count needs to start right here, but we know the Jubilee count is on the regnal year. So it was already a Jubilee year going on. And as you can see, Miriam and Aaron, they died.
They died in the year prior to the Jubilee, so the Jubilee year had not yet started.
They didn't make it to the Jubilee year for their death. And then sometime after there, I would guess, this is where I put it, the Torah doesn't say, but the Israelites defeated Sihon and Heshbon and Og and conquered Bashan in months either 7, 8, or 9 together, ?
And the reason for me placing the battles of Sihon and Heshbon and Og in Bashan in months 7, 8, and 9, because Aaron, he died on the first day of the 5th month. And it says that the Israelites mourned 30 days. So that would bring you to the 6th month. And if they were mourning for 30 days, they were not traveling for 30 days. And then they would have had to travel from Mount Hor all the way around and enter into past the Wadi, the river Zered. So they would have like 30 days to pass the river Zered, which would be the whole 6th month to do that travel. And then by that time, they would have made it up to the plains of Moab to start having war. So that's how I place these events happening. Even though it doesn't say, it makes logical sense that it would have happened in this Jubilee year.
We know that they were back
and returned from the war of Og and Bashan back on the plains of Moab when Balaam prophesied, when Balak hired Balaam to prophesy over them.
And then after Balaam prophesied, Phinehas stayed the plague, and then the census of Israel was taken, and then the Israelites avenged on the Midianites in the 10th month likely. How come we know this? Is because on the first day of the 11th month, Moses turned 120 years old, and we have the first day of the 11th month recorded in the Book of Deuteronomy.
And it was on this same day, the first day of the 11th month in the 40th year, when Moses died.
That means that all these events of Sihon and Heshbon
and Balak hiring Balaam to prophesy over Israel and curse Israel, and then Phinehas staying the plague, and the census of Israel, and the avenging on the Midianites, all had to happen prior to the first day of the 11th month.
This is very important what happened here in the book of Deuteronomy. There's prophecies at the end of the book of Deuteronomy that are going to play out likely in this 70th Jubilee coming up. The Song of Moses, and then the blessing of Moses. So much to understand. It's so prophetic, and it's likely for the 70th Jubilee. I'll hope to make a video on that after this. And then, so Moses died on that same day, first day of the 11th month. They mourned for Moses 30 days.
So Moses died during that Jubilee year. And so the Israelites mourned the entire 11th month.
And that brings us to the 12th month. Joshua took over, and then the Israelites crossed into the promised land on the 10th day of the 1st month right here during the Jubilee year in 1406 BC. And then they had the Passover in the 2nd month. They did the 7-day march, the Battle of Jericho, according to the Book of Jasher. It might be the only thing that Jasher
dated in the modern Book of Jasher. The dating of this event, of the Battle of Jericho, starting on the first day of the 2nd month,
has correct. Then after the blowing of the Jubilee horns, and that later they did the covenant at Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, swearing to the oath. And that likely happened on the 15th day of the 3rd month, which is the biblical date according to the Temple Scroll, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Book of Jubilees.
And also Shavuot is recorded as the 15th day of the 3rd month in other calendrical scrolls of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
For the Feast of Shavuot. So Shavuot makes total sense that
the Israelites took the oath on Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal on the day of Shavuot, because Shavuot, according to the Book of Jubilees, is a twofold festival. It's the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of the First Fruits of the Wheat Harvest. It's also the Feast of the Covenants, it's called. So they would have renewed the covenant then on the 15th day of the third month, more than likely during the Jubilee year, right when they entered into the land.
That event happened, and in this proposed timeline of this Jubilee year, 1407 to 1406 BC, it makes total sense. Then the Israelites were deceived by the Gibeonites, and then we have Joshua's long day. And that happened at the end of the fourth month. And we know that because it was a solar calibrated calendar. The solar cycle hasn't changed. The calendar is 364 days. The solar cycle is 365.24 days. So we know where that happened. It happened around like the 20th day or something of the fourth month. And then like 2 days after is when the solar eclipse happened. And then Joshua, after that, Joshua's long day, that led into the Southern Victory campaign in the fifth month. And then I project and speculate that Joshua then defeated the northern kings in one day during the sixth month. Thus, when you defeat the kings, you get the land. Now, they did have to go back and do more battles and defeat. It took several more years for them to clear out all the peoples, and they still didn't do it by the time of Joshua's older age. So you have this whole theme of Jubilee of getting the land back to the rightful owner. Because here, when the Israelites at the beginning of their military campaign in the Jubilee year,
after the Israelites defeated Sihon and Heshbon and Og, king of Bashan, and the Amorites there on the east, Reuben and Gad asked for their inheritance. They were given their inheritance, but they had to come over and fight with their brothers. But getting the land is in the theme of the Jubilee, giving the land to the rightful owners.
And then to end it up, then they conquered Canaan, the southern Canaan kings, in the fifth month likely. And then in the sixth month, they finished off the year with the battle of the northern kings, which happened in one day. And then after that, for several years after that, maybe like 4 or 5 years, I think it is, they had a battle and do the rest of the cleanup work. But they defeated the kings, and if you defeat the kings, you get the land.
And the land going back to its rightful owners is in the theme of the Jubilee.
Timeline right here, and you can see that the 40th year of the Exodus ended right here in the first month, which was halfway through the year of the 50th Jubilee year, right here. So in the 41st year, just as it says in the Dead Sea Scrolls, they crossed the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, the 41st year of the Exodus, right here, which was in the 50th Jubilee year. So it is 70 Jubilees, 17 Jubilees backwards and 50 Jubilees forwards for Ezekiel 40 verse 1, 70 Jubilees. So it is 70 Jubilees of the real Israelites, not the Jewish people, but the real Israelites. And here is the Restored Israelite Jubilee count table. There's a link to this table in the description. You can come here and count it for yourself. Okay, 70 Jubilees right here. This first row right here is not a Jubilee year
Of the Israelites.
even though it was a Jubilee year, it wasn't a Jubilee year of the Israelites. It was year one of the first Jubilee, which ended right here in this row right here, row 2. That was the first Jubilee, one of 70. So there you have that. This is the 70th Jubilee of Israel coming up. And now you might be asking, why is the 70th Jubilee of real Israel significant? And it's because it is both the fulfillment of Daniel 9:24's prophecy of 70 Jubilees, and the fulfillment of Messiah Yeshua's prophecy of 77s, which is code for 70 Jubilees. As I explained in my video 2 years ago, that a Jubilee is a 7 of weeks of years. So 49 years, a Jubilee is 49 years. So when he says 77s, it's also a 7 of weeks of years, not just a week of years.
But 7 weeks of years.
Here's a clip of my part 2 video from over 20 months ago, January 2022, of me explaining that Daniel's multifaceted 70 weeks prophecy of 77s also has a facet that is 70 Jubilees.
Daniel 9:24 is really 70 jubilees and not 70 weeks. And this has perplexed many scholars for thousands of years, as everyone believes that it's 70 weeks, but it's really 70 jubilees. As the true interpretation has been hidden from the masses for ages. Now, Jeremiah understood it, Daniel understood it, Yeshua understood it, Paul possibly understood it. Now we understand it. It's 70 jubilees is when everything is going to end, as I will explain here coming up. So here I am on Bible Hub, and you can look at all the times it's been translated as 70 weeks. Looks like over 32 translations have translated 70 weeks are decreed, 70 weeks are determined, 70 weeks are apportioned, 70 weeks are decreed, 70 weeks have been determined. So all of these translations have 70 weeks. A lot of people have determined that these are 7 weeks, but they're actually seven periods of 7 years, which is a 49-year Jubilee cycle. So it says 70 weeks, Sabuim, and that Sabuim is a period of 7 days or years, but it also could be a period of 7 weeks of years, which is a Jubilee, 49-year period. So, as I explained, another type of 7 not mentioned in the Strong's definition of a heptad is a heptad of weeks of years, which is 7 weeks of 7 years, which is 49 years, which is actually one Jubilee cycle. So Daniel 9:24 is speaking really of 70 Jubilees. And in this video, I explained that the 70 Jubilees is the same 70 Jubilees Messiah Yeshua prophesied of when the kingdom of Eloah is going to come to earth in Matthew chapter 18, verses 22 to 23. So now that we understand that the correct interpretation is 70 Jubilees are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to do what? To finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make atonement for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. And as I was making this newest video right here, I was looking at the different translations of Daniel 9:24. I went back to that page that I had in that video, and I didn't see this when I made this video 20 months ago. But here you see the Lambda Bible, an Aramaic translation, translates it as 70 times 7 weeks are determined. 7 weeks of years is a Jubilee. So the Lambda Bible confirms my semi-unique understanding. Besides the Lambda Bible, there's only like 1 or 2 other pages that I've seen interpret Daniel 9:24, 70 Jubilees, a small website, and that's about it. But it's saying 70 Jubilees right here, because 7 weeks of years is 49 years, and that's a Jubilee, are determined. So 70 Jubilees are determined. So let me go ahead and read the entire verse. And this is how it translates the verse. 70 times 7 weeks. 70 Jubilees are determined upon thy people and upon your holy city to finish the transgressions and to make an end of sins and for the forgiveness of the iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness, to fulfill the vision of the prophets, and to give the most holy to Messiah. This is huge right here. This is huge considering that we are literally on the verge of the 70th Jubilee. And Daniel 9:24 is about to be fulfilled. Hallelujah. And in the part 1 video, I also explained that Messiah Yeshua also spoke in code that the kingdom of heaven will come to earth at 70 times 7. As a 7 is code for a Jubilee, which is 7 weeks of years. It's the same as Daniel's 70 Jubilees prophecy. So here's the clip, because it's all about the keys to the kingdom of heaven. The keys to the kingdom of heaven, identified and interpreted. During the process of constructing this video on restoring the Jubilee, by the spirit of wisdom and understanding, I was given the ability to identify and interpret Messiah Yeshua's prophecy of the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Hallelujah.
So regarding the keys to the kingdom of heaven, to identify them and interpret them, in Matthew chapter 16, Messiah Yeshua said he was going to give Peter the keys to the kingdom of heaven.
And I'm going to identify where Messiah Yeshua gave Peter the keys and what the keys are.
And I believe that the keys to the kingdom of heaven is when Messiah Yeshua cryptically tells Peter the exact timing of his return, which I deciphered and I'm sharing with you in this video. The keys to the kingdom of heaven is to understand when the kingdom of heaven is going to come to earth, i.e. when Messiah Yeshua is going to come to earth, which will happen at the last trump. Now you should know that the trump of Jubilee is a trump. So here I am in Matthew chapter 16, and here is where Peter professes Messiah Yeshua as the Messiah, the Son of the living Eloah. And then Yeshua answered him and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I also say unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my congregation, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Then charged he his disciples that they should tell no man that he was Yeshua the Messiah. So here we see that Messiah Yeshua said he will give
Peter
the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And then where does he do this? It certainly wasn't in the next verse. It wasn't down here when he rebuked Peter. It wasn't down here when he was told to take up his cross. But he did talk about the Son of Man shall come in the glory
of his Father with his angels,
and then he shall reward every man according to his works. Verily I say unto you that there shall be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And then the next chapter in Matthew 17, we see the transfiguration event. We see Messiah Yeshua heals a boy with a demon. We see Messiah Yeshua predicted death and resurrection. We see the temple tax, that the children are free. And then here in chapter 18, the disciples asked Yeshua about being the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So we hear about it, and you have to be as a child, which means that you have to make Elohim your father to become like a child. He has to become your father. Then he talks about temptations and trespasses, the parable of the lost sheep, a brother who sins. And then we get down here to the parable of the unforgiving servant.
So you need to recognize that
since Messiah Yeshua promised to give Peter the keys, he has yet to give Peter the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Then Peter came to him, Yeshua, and said, Master, how oft should my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Yeshua said unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. And then Messiah Yeshua then goes on to talk about the kingdom of heaven. And so here is what I identified through the spirit of wisdom and understanding, hallelujah, if I be correct, that this is the keys to the kingdom of heaven, knowing when the kingdom is going to come to earth. The kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of Eloah is going to come to earth. That's what we need to know. So when is it going to come to earth? 70 times 7. And that right there is talking about the 70th Jubilee, as I'll now explain to you. Again, then came Peter to Yeshua and said, Master, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? And Yeshua said unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. So when Peter asks about being forgiven 7 times, there's 7 weeks in a 49-year Shemitah cycle. And the following year is the 50th year of Jubilee, when all debts are forgiven. So here we see 7 times, which is a Shemitah cycle. And here's how the Shemitah cycle works. It's a week of years, and there's 7 weeks. Thus 7 times 7 equals 49 years. And the 50th year is the Jubilee year, and its forgiveness and debts are canceled. It's a year of forgiveness and the cancellation of debts. So Peter asked regarding how often should he forgive his brother, 7 times. That could be interpreted as 1 Jubilee cycle, but Yeshua says no, 70 times the 7, which is 70 Jubilees. And those 70 Jubilees would be the timing from when the Israelites entered into the promised land of Canaan, and that's when the Shemitah cycle and the Jubilee cycle began up until his return when the 70th Jubilee happens. And I'm telling you now that the next Jubilee is the 70th Jubilee, and we're very close to it, and I'm going to show you how to count it on your own in this video. So you can test it and do the math for yourself. And also in Acts 1, it's very important regarding the kingdom of Eloah.
So during those 40 days, Messiah Yeshua was speaking on things pertaining to the kingdom of Eloah. And then down here in the ascension, when they, the disciples, therefore were come together,
and they asked him, saying, Master, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? So the disciples were expecting Yeshua to come and restore the kingdom back to Israel. It was under Roman occupation and Edomite Jewry occupation. So they wanted the kingdom of Israel restored, and they thought that it was going to happen, and then he died, he resurrected, he was seen for 40 days, and then they came to him, and the first thing that they said in Acts 1, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? And he said unto them, it is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power, but ye shall receive power after the Ruach HaKodesh has come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in Judea and in Samaria unto the uttermost part of the earth. So it wasn't for the disciples to know, but it's for you to know, because I'm breaking down to you how to restore the Jubilee and count the Jubilee and count 70 Jubilees when the kingdom of heaven is going to come to earth. And when Yeshua had spoken these things while they beheld, he was taken up, a cloud received him out of their sight, and while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, 2 men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? The same Yeshua which is taken up from you into heaven shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven. So just as I read before, the Son of Man, he's going to come back in the clouds with his holy ones, his set apart ones, to establish the kingdom of heaven, to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth.
in the book of Acts chapter 1, which was written by Luke, lines up with Luke's gospel here in Luke 21, and then they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. So that we see that right here in Acts chapter 1. And this is all about restoring again the kingdom to Israel, and that's going to be Israel's redemption. The redemption draws nigh.
And that's what we're supposed to pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, the Father's kingdom, the kingdom of Eloah, the kingdom of heaven to come, and thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So we're praying for his kingdom to come to earth. And so that's what this 70 times 7 is all about. It's 70 Jubilees, and counting that, and that finding that 70th Jubilee is when the kingdom of heaven is going to come to earth. So with the restored Jubilee Shemitah cycle, we will now be able to count the 70 Jubilees to know when the kingdom of heaven is going to come to earth at the last trump, which is the 70th trump of Jubilee, which is when Messiah Yeshua is going to forgive the debts of true Israel and restore the kingdom and rule and reign here on earth. And now, in making this video, I made another find, hallelujah, in the Book of Jubilees, chapter 50, verse 5, that it syncs with the 70 times 7, 70 Jubilees of Daniel 9:24. I've already read you Jubilees 50, verse 1 through 4. And in verse 5 it says, and the Jubilees shall pass by. It says, look, they cross the Jordan until they pass over the land of Canaan, crossing the Jordan to the west. Okay, this is speaking of the 50th Jubilee. That's a Jubilee year. And it says, and Jubilees shall pass by. From when? From when they cross the Jordan. That's what I'm explaining to you in this video. Until Israel is cleansed from all guilt of fornication and uncleanliness and pollution and sin and error, and dwells with confidence in all the land. And there shall be no more a Satan or any evil one, and the land shall be clean from that time forevermore. It says the Jubilees, but it doesn't say how many. And what's so interesting is Jubilees chapter 50 verse 5 syncs with Daniel 9:24 in the same theme. And Jubilees shall pass by. 70 Jubilees of weeks are determined upon thy people, until Israel is cleansed from all guilt. So are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression. Israel is cleansed from all guilt and fornication and uncleanliness and pollution and sin and error, and dwells with all confidence in the land. Upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and make an end of sins and to make atonement for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and prophecy and to anoint the most holy. And there shall be no more a Satan or any evil one, and the land shall be clean from that time forevermore. These two verses, Jubilees 50 verse 5 and Daniel 9:24, they are hand in hand. They are compatible with each other. Jubilees doesn't tell us how many Jubilees is required to pass by, but Daniel does, and Messiah Yeshua does too. Quote, then came Peter to him, Messiah Yeshua, and said, Master, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him, till 7 times? Yeshua saith unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. 7 weeks of years, 70 times 7 weeks of years. It's all the same right here. Hallelujah.
All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and sync this Daniel 9:24 up with Deuteronomy 32:43. So very important to note that Deuteronomy was given, the whole book of Deuteronomy takes place in the Jubilee year, the 50th Jubilee year, the year that the Israelites were going to enter into the land of Canaan. This is 1407 BC through 1406 BC. So this is the last day of Moses' life, and he prophesies here in the Song of Moses, Deuteronomy 32. There's at least 2 songs of Moses in our Bible. You have Exodus 15, when they passed through the waters, Sea of Reeds, Yam Suf, and Pharaoh's army was destroyed. And then you have Deuteronomy 32, which is a rebuke against his people, but also at the end of it right here, you have Yahweh making atonement for his land and his people. And this is so key, because Daniel 9:24 is speaking about this, when Yahweh will take vengeance on his adversaries and avenge those who hate him, and will make atonement for his land and for his people. Remember, 70 Jubilees are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. Important to note that the city of Jerusalem, the holy city, is part of the land. So when Daniel said 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, he's speaking of the same verse here as Moses in Deuteronomy 32:43. But Daniel is giving us a timeline for it, and it's 70 Jubilees. Well, this holy city, we think of it to be Jerusalem, but it's going to be bigger than Jerusalem. It's going to be Yahweh Shema. According to the book of Ezekiel, I think it's called Yahweh is there. So that's what this city is going to be. And right now, this is what, and this scripture that I'm using right here, I'm on one of my favorite websites, Dead Sea Scrolls Bible Translations, but currently right now the website is down. So I had to go to the Wayback Machine, to the web archive, archive.org, to the Wayback Machine to take a look at it. And this is a very interesting fragment that's been preserved of Deuteronomy 32, because the comment on this is that the translator says this scroll appears to be a vorlage, the Hebrew source of the Greek Septuagint, since the differences from the traditional text agree with the LXX. So right here, this is a very special document. And what do we have? We have this: rejoice, heavens, with his people, and bow down to him, all gods, for he will avenge the blood of his sons. He will take vengeance on his adversaries and avenge those who hate him, and will make atonement for his land and for his people. So here's Daniel 9:24, and I have it side by side with Deuteronomy 32:43. And you can see I color-coded it. 70 Jubilees are determined upon thy people, his people, and upon thy holy city for his land, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make atonement for iniquity, and will make atonement. So he's going to be making atonement and will bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and prophecy and to anoint the most holy. Daniel 9:24 is congruent with Deuteronomy 32:43, that Moses spoke in the Jubilee year of 1407 through 1406 BC. Also here in Deuteronomy chapter 32, the Song of Moses, here is a verse regarding the day of vengeance. And remember, at the beginning of this video, I talked about the day of vengeance. I didn't read Deuteronomy 32 verse 35, but it's in the day of vengeance I will recompense. So remember, it's a year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. And then down here, for he will avenge the blood of his saints, and he will render vengeance and recompense justice to his enemies. So that's something to consider, but we see this word recompense, but it's also the day of vengeance, render vengeance and recompense. So this theme is in the theme of Jubilee. So this will happen in the Jubilee year, whether it's in the 6 months prior to the Jubilee, possibly starting in the first day of the first month, but the year Jubilee begins on the 10th day of the 7th month.
The 120th Jubilee since the days of Adam.
Question mark, possibly.
According to the Book of Jubilees, the Israelites crossed in the 50th
Jubilee year.
I saw some information that it was the 51st year in the Book of Jubilees. There are some errors in the Book of Jubilees. Someone shared with me in the Facebook page that it wasn't the 50th Jubilee, but it was the 51st Jubilee. So that would make this the 121st Jubilee. I can't guarantee that. I haven't researched what he did. But just going off the Book of Jubilees, it says if this was the 50th, this is 70 from there. That would be the 120th Jubilees, the next Jubilee year. As I shared with you, it says it was 49 Jubilees in 9 years. They needed 40 years, and then they would cross the Jordan the following year, which was in the 50th Jubilee. The 120 Jubilee year prophecy, and Yahweh said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also his flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. 120 Jubilee years, possibly? So my question is Genesis 6:3 a multifaceted prophecy of 120 Jubilees? And is Yahweh going to judge the earth and man's wickedness and will rule with an iron scepter according to his laws, statutes, and commandments at the 120th Jubilee? Is that what's going to happen? Is he going to say, enough of this flesh, we're not going to tolerate this anymore on earth, and Yahweh Elohim is going to come in and rule and reign with an iron scepter? We'll see, but possibly so. And I do have a table for this. Here's my creation Jubilee count, all the way back from creation until the 50th Jubilee. That's the Jubilee of Ezekiel right here, up to the next Jubilee. Even though it says row 121, the first year is not the first Jubilee. The first Jubilee is right here in row 2. So you have to subtract 1 from 120, and this is the 120th Jubilee from the first year of creation according to the Book of Jubilees. And it's also the 70th Jubilee from when the Israelites entered into the Promised Land. So now let me go ahead and share with you the falsely supposed Jubilees in the Bible. Here we have 3 of them. And everybody, I've seen people present these Jubilees,
but they are wrong and incorrect.
Isaiah 37:30, which is the same verse as 2 Kings 19:29, the sign that was given to King Hezekiah. You have Jeremiah 34, when Zedekiah proclaimed liberty. And then you have Messiah Yeshua in Luke chapter 4, reading Isaiah 61, verse 1 to 2a in the synagogue, who also proclaimed liberty. Remember, he did not the day of vengeance. So the falsely supposed Jubilees in the Bible, Isaiah 37:30, 2 Kings 19:29, the sign of Hezekiah. Hezekiah's sole reign was from 716 BC to 687 BC.
This is Edwin Teal's chronology of the kings of Judah and Israel. And here we can see Hezekiah started in 716 BC. He reigned for 29 years, and it ended here in 687 BC.
And it's important to note that the Jubilee happened in 721 to 720 BC, and also in 672 to 671 BC. So there was no year of Jubilee that happened during King Hezekiah's reign. And Samaria was taken in the 6th year of the reign of King Hezekiah, and the Jubilee sign was later given to Hezekiah in the 14th year of his reign. So the sign that was given to him, it was not a Jubilee year of Hezekiah, but rather it was a
Possibly
prophecy of this next Jubilee year to come, the one where Yahweh's judgment is going to come.
and restoration of Israel.
So here you can see on the spreadsheet real quick, the table, 721 was the Jubilee year, and also 672 was the Jubilee year. Hezekiah's reign did not fall on a Jubilee year. And as I said, I suggest that this prophecy is a prophecy for the next Jubilee. And this shall be a sign unto thee. Ye shall eat this year such as things as grow of themselves. And in the 2nd year, that which springeth up of the same. And in the 3rd year, sow ye and reap and plant vineyards and eat the fruits thereof. And the remnant that is escaped of the house of Judah shall yet again take root downward and bear fruit upward. For out of Jerusalem shall go forth a remnant, and they that escaped out of Mount Zion, the zeal of Yahweh of hosts shall do this. So we're seeing this is prophetic talk of a future Jubilee. It didn't happen during Hezekiah's reign, so it can be talking about the one coming up.
That prophecy that was given to King Hezekiah, it was given in between this Jubilee here and this Jubilee here. Now that prophecy, it had to do with the remnant of Jerusalem that escaped. So it possibly can be referring to the group of captivity of 598 to 597 BC. And if that be the case, and it's 70 years on that, and that's what that's referring to, that would lead us to 2 years before the Jubilee year, 525 to 524 BC. So here we have 597, the year that King Jehoiachin was taken captive. You subtract 70 years, it's going to bring you to 527. Then you would have 527 to 26, that's 1 year. 526 to 25, that's 2 years. And then the 3rd year, so it doesn't technically line up. Whatever the case might be, there was no Jubilee year during King Hezekiah's reign, so it's irrelevant. It was not a Jubilee year during King Hezekiah's reign.
The second falsely supposed Jubilees in the book of the Bible is when Zedekiah proclaimed liberty in Jeremiah 34 verses 8 through 11. But then he rescinded the liberty. Zedekiah's reign started in 598 BC when Nebuchadnezzar,
Jehoiachin with
Zedekiah, and ended in 587 BC with the destruction of Jerusalem. And there was no Jubilee during his reign. That Jubilee happened later in Ezekiel's 25th year of the captivity, which was 574 BC. Rather, when looking at Yahweh's response to Zedekiah in Jeremiah 34, verse 12 to 17, we see in verse 14 the clarification that the liberty that Zedekiah proclaimed was the Shemitah release. It wasn't the year of Jubilee, but the Shemitah release. And my calculation is that the Shemitah release of Zedekiah was made in 589 BC, the year before the destruction of Jerusalem. So here's the destruction of Jerusalem. I have Zedekiah proclaiming liberty right here. And how do we know that?
all I'm going to do is count the Shemitah cycle backwards, starting with the year of Jubilee that we've already established using Ezekiel 40 verse 1, and it will lead us to the year that Zedekiah proclaimed liberty to be in the 7th month of 589 BC. He then rescinded it, and after he rescinded it, then in the 10th month, Yahweh sent the siege to begin in 589 BC, and it lasted all the way through to the 4th month of 587 BC.
This is year 1, so year 24 is year 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Year 7 is where he proclaimed liberty, set everybody free, and then he rescinded that liberty, and then Yahweh appointed Zedekiah, to the liberty of the sword, as we'll read. Therefore, thus saith Yahweh, ye have not hearkened unto me in proclaiming liberty, every one to his brother, and every man to his neighbor. Behold, I proclaim a liberty for you, saith Yahweh, to the sword, and to the pestilence, and to the famine, and I will make you to be removed in all the kingdoms of the earth. So that is a prophecy against Zedekiah. Therefore the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah from Yahweh, saying, Thus saith Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, I made a covenant with your fathers in the day that I brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondmen. At the end of 7 years let go every man his brother a Hebrew, which hath been sold unto thee. And when he hath served thee 6 years, thou shalt let him go free from thee. But your fathers hearkened not unto me, neither inclined their ear. And ye are now turned, and had done right in my sight, in proclaiming liberty every man to his neighbor. And ye made a covenant before me in the house which is called by my name. But ye, Zedekiah, turned and polluted my name, and caused every man his servant and every man his handmaid, whom ye had set at liberty at their pleasure, to return, and brought them into subjection, to be your servants, to be unto you for servants and for handmaids. Therefore thus saith Yahweh, ye have not hearkened to me in proclaiming liberty, every one to his brother, and every man to his neighbor. Behold, I proclaim a liberty for you, saith Yahweh, to the sword, to the pestilence, and to the famine, and I will make you to be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. So what we have here is, so this right here, Yahweh's own words, his own response through the prophet Jeremiah to Zedekiah, clarifies that Zedekiah didn't proclaim the Jubilee year. The Jubilee year didn't happen during Zedekiah's reign. Rather, Zedekiah proclaimed the Shemitah release, the 7th year release. Now, the last falsely supposed Jubilees in the Bible is Luke 4. Messiah Yeshua, at the beginning of his ministry, read Isaiah 61, verse 1 through 2a in the synagogue, and many think that this was done on Yom Kippurim, but after reading Isaiah 61, verse 1 to 2a, Messiah Yeshua did not go to Sukkot tabernacles in Jerusalem, but rather, in Luke 4, verse 31, he came down to Capernaum, a city of Galilee, and taught them there on the Sabbath days, plural. He said unto them, I must preach the kingdom of Elohim, Eloah, to the other cities also. Therefore I am sent. And he preached in the synagogues of Galilee. So if this was the Feast of Sukkot, everybody would have been down in Jerusalem for Sukkot. They were supposed to be down in Jerusalem for Sukkot if this was really on Yom Kippurim during the Jubilee year. But rather, Messiah Yeshua, also what he did was proclaim the same liberty that Zedekiah proclaimed.
The Shemitah year release.
It was not the Jubilee year. And here's a table for that. I have a link in the description. As I said, it was a Shemitah year, a 7th year release that Messiah Yeshua proclaimed liberty, the same one as Zedekiah. So the Jubilee during Messiah's lifetime was in 15 to 16 AD. And Messiah Yeshua hasn't started his ministry yet. Messiah Yeshua didn't start his ministry until
28 AD, and one of the first things that he did was proclaim liberty in the synagogue by reading Isaiah 61 verses 1 through 2a.
And that's when he proclaimed liberty of the captives, and that was the same liberty that Zedekiah proclaimed in the 7th year, in 28 AD. And look how it lines up. Right here, 28 AD is likely when Messiah Yeshua proclaimed liberty in the 7th year. Look how it fits on the Shemitah cycle. You had the Jubilee year, which was year 1 of the next 50-year cycle. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, year 7 of 7. Year 1 of 7. Year 7 of 7. This is when Messiah Yeshua's ministry started, right here, fall 28 AD. And when you do a Google search for Messiah Yeshua's ministry starting in fall 28 AD, you get the results that chronologists say that Messiah Yeshua's ministry began either between 28 AD at the earliest and AD 30 at the latest. And after seeing a couple of papers out there, links in the description, I'm convinced that it was at 28 AD because it syncs right up with this Jubilee schedule right here. So now we have this Jubilee schedule of Ezekiel 40 verse 1. It syncs up with the Israelites' entrance into the Promised Land. It syncs up with Messiah Yeshua proclaiming liberty right here in the 7th year, okay, to start his ministry, which is when chronologists say that this event happened, okay, and it syncs up on the Jubilee cycle. So this isn't a coincidence. This thing is tested, I believe, and this is accurate. You guys need to understand that. So now the 69 weeks of Daniel. As I've already said, Daniel chapter 9 is a multifaceted prophecy. Different prophecies, different time periods regarding Messiah Yeshua, and now the 69 weeks of Daniel leading up to the 70th week. And I'm not talking about Jubilees, but I'm talking about weeks of years. So 70 weeks of years, not 77s of weeks of years. So in my part 4 video on my Restored Jubilee playlist, I explained a facet of Daniel's 69 weeks prophecy that Messiah the Prince was to arrive in 2018. But it looks like it was year 2017 to 2018 now that we have the Jubilee Year Restored. In my video, in this video right here, my chronology was off 1 year, it appears, as I did not have the Astro Archeological information to verify the Jubilee count. So here's the video that I did from my video in 2018. This video I took in 2018, Major Prophecy Fulfilled in 2018, see for yourself. And that this clip is from this video right here that I did over a year ago, Daniel's 70th week, Elijah Messiah the Prince was to arrive 2017 to 2018. Let me play the clip. So that interpretation that I just gave you, I explained that in my videos on why it's 70 Jubilees and not 70 weeks. As in Daniel 9:24, the word weeks is a week of years. That's almost a tongue twister. A week of years, which is 49 years. And that is a Jubilee cycle. While in Daniel 9:25, 26 and 27, the weeks that are in here, in these verses, are a week of years as we have traditionally understood. So when it talks of 7 weeks, it's a week of years is 7 years, so 7 times 7 is 49. So again, Daniel 9:24 by itself, a week of years is 7 years. And a week
Of a week of years
is 49 years. So Daniel 9:24 is speaking of 70 Jubilees when it's by itself. Daniel 9:25, 26, and 27, these weeks are a week of years, which are just 7 years. So the word for weeks is the same word here used throughout the passage, but the hidden meaning is that there are 2 different meanings of the same word for weeks in this whole entire passage, which is why it's been so difficult for Bible scholars to interpret the passage. But to make things even more confusing for you is that Daniel 9:24 has a dual meaning of prophecy. So it also means 70 weeks of years when it is part of this entire passage. So it is the same 70 weeks here, but by itself, it's 70 Jubilees, because that's the 70 years that Jeremiah prophesied of. These 70 weeks, or these 490 years, are actually a part of the Restored Jubilee timeline, as I will explain. And because we have the Restored Jubilee cycle and timeline, we can now easily identify when the last 7 years was to begin. So now let me go ahead and play that video from 2018 regarding this prophecy. And then I'm going to go ahead and share with you the timelines and how the last Shemitah syncs up with the Jubilee count, where the Revelation 12 sign was on it, and where exactly we are today on the day of the spring equinox.
Hi, Nick Vanderlaan here from Jerusalem. It's May 24th, 2018. It's the 5th day of the 3rd month on Elohim's Essene Enoch solar calendar. This prophecy deals in Daniel chapter 9, guys, and it's regarding the rebuilding and restoring of Jerusalem. As you can see right now, we're here on Mount Zion, and this is the walls of Jerusalem that were built by King Suleiman the Magnificent. Down here is the city of David. We're on the top of Mount Zion. So the prophecy right here is, there's 70 weeks that were decreed upon the people and as your holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make atonement for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and prophecy and to anoint the most holy. And know then and understand from the issuing of the word to restore and to rebuild Jerusalem to Messiah the prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks, so that's a total of 69 weeks. It shall be built again with a plaza and a trench, even in times of affliction. And this goes on to talk about how Messiah would be cut off, the city will be destroyed in ruins until the end. So guys, this is the second prophecy, this is the second fulfillment. I'm sure many of you have heard this, maybe if you haven't. So what I want to document right now, this is kind of a crude video that I got going on here, but here I am on Wikipedia. Okay, and on the walls of Jerusalem, as you can read, the walls of Jerusalem in 1535 was part of the Ottoman Empire, and Sultan Suleiman ordered the ruined walls to be built. Okay, so in 1535 the walls were ordered to be rebuilt. So now guys, you can check this information out, it's public. We don't know if it was after the spring equinox, but that is my guess. I looked up for documentation to try to line it up with the Essene calendar, but I couldn't find it. So let's go ahead and get in. Sorry guys, this is on, crayon from my kids and some lined paper. But let's go ahead and get into this. So 1535 CE, Jerusalem was ordered to be rebuilt as per Daniel 9:25. Okay, there were 69 weeks of years, which is 69 times 7, okay, equals 483 years. You add up 1535 plus 483, it brings you to 2018. This is 69 weeks. Well, there's a 70th week. Elohim's wrath is about to be poured out, it appears, if this is the correct way to keep this prophecy.
So there you have it. That was that video. Now let me go ahead and commentate on that video. So as I said in that video, that in 1535, it's estimated by historians that Sultan Suleiman of the Ottoman Empire made a decree to restore and rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Historians have archaeological evidence dating that the work began in 1536, so they perceive that the decree was made in 1535 to rebuild the walls. You would think that there would be a lot of planning that would have to go into that. So the 69 weeks of 7 years per week, which is 483 years, if we take 1535 plus 483 years, it brings us to 2018. So sometime around 2018 was when Messiah the Prince was supposed to arrive in Jerusalem.
Now to follow up on that video,
so as you see, they don't have a date for when Sultan Suleiman ordered the walls of Jerusalem to be rebuilt. They say 1535, but if it was regnal year 1534 through 1535, then the 69 weeks would have ended in fall 2017. Thus, fall 2017 would have been the beginning of the 70th week of Daniel. And the 70th week of Daniel isn't what we think. It's not 3 years of peace, a 7-year peace treaty, 3 years of peace, 3 years of wrath.
remember Daniel's prophecy is multifaceted. Also, in Messiah Yeshua's end times overview, he never said anything about being 7-year peace treaty and 3.5 years of peace and 3.5 years of wrath.
So 1534 plus 483 years equals 2017. Thus, Messiah the Prince was to arrive in regnal year 2017 to 2018.
Regarding the year 1535 and the decree to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, which is a civil engineering project, not buildings, not rebuilding the citadel right here, but the walls of Jerusalem, I want to disclaim that the claim here made on this Wikipedia page of 1535 is according to a footnote that I checked out. I looked at the source, I checked out the book in the library, and there's nowhere in it where it says, I did a search for 1535, that did not exist in the book source for this footnote. Now, also I want to make note that year 1534 to 1535 was the Jubilee year, and fall to fall. So it started in September 28th. So the Jubilee year started September 28th, 1534 through September 18th, 1535. So the majority, approximately 75% of the Jubilee year, took place during the Gregorian year of 1535. So I found that very interesting. Thus, there is about a 75% chance, if true, that the decree to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem was issued during the Jubilee year. So if this can be verified that it was during 1535, I've looked other places, it doesn't give a month or a day, but just said in 1535, there's a 75% chance it was done during the Jubilee year, which is the first year of the 490 years, the first year of the 69 weeks, the first year of the 70 weeks, which is 10 Jubilees, okay? And I also consulted in email, I emailed Dr. Mehmet Tuntunku, who is the expert and author of the book Turkish Jerusalem. And he has documented evidence and inscribed stones that the walls of Jerusalem, the construction started in 1537. Now, Daniel 9:24 is all about the decree for the walls to be rebuilt. Thus, considering the massive scale of the project, the civil planning likely took at least a year to plan out the walls of Jerusalem all the way around the old city. And thus, the decree by Sultan Suleiman would have preceded the civil planning, so 1535 is very plausible.
So here you can see this chart that I have, this table that I have for Daniel's 69 weeks of years. It would have started in 1534. Fall 1534 would have been the beginning of this count,
which is also the Jubilee year 1534 through 1535.
And every 7 years you can go ahead and count it. I'm not going to do it for this video, but you can go ahead and do it. And the 483rd year was regnal year 2016 to 2017.
So Daniel's 69 weeks of years ended in fall or September 2017, right before the Revelation 12 sign and the beginning of the last 7 years. Right here, you can see that this is row number 70. Link to this table in the description.
Thus, the fall 2017, Messiah the Prince was to arrive during the regnal year of Judah 2017-2018. And that means that this last 7 right here, 2017 to 2024, is the 70th Shemitah, the 70th week of Daniel. The 70th Shemitah week of Daniel.
And this is probably going to receive some objections because of how brainwashed people have been with this 7-year tribulation, 3.5 years of peace, 3.5 years of wrath, and the Jewish temple type false Zio-Christian prophecies. But that's irrelevant. Things aren't going to go how you think they are, how you've been programmed to think that they're going to go. Wars and desolations are determined. Look at Messiah Yeshua's end times overview. It's all about war. Look at the beginning with the opening of the seals. It's not necessarily peace. Someone said, oh, the white seal, the seal 1, the rider of the white horse, is the peace plan. But the seal number 2 is the rider of the red horse, and he has a great sword, which is the great sword of war. So things aren't going to play out how we think they are going to play out. They're going to play out how Yahweh has hidden them to play out.
So you can count right here. This is 1. You go all the way down to this column, and you'll see it's 70. Here, the 70th week of Daniel started in 2017 to 2024. It's going to be followed up with the 70th Jubilee.
So fall 2023 through fall 2024, the year that we're currently in, is the 490th year of this 70-week prophecy of 490 years. And 490 years is 10 Jubilees. The following Jubilee year will be next year in fall, September 2024.
So the 70th week of Daniel, as I just shared, it started right here in the fall 2017, the end of Daniel's 69 weeks of years, the beginning of the 70th week of Daniel, and the arrival of Messiah the Prince. A lot of people, we have this false understanding from false eschatology teachers on what the 70th week of Daniel is about.
As I have said in this video several times, is that Daniel's prophecy of Daniel chapter 9, there are several facets. That means there's several different prophecies on several different time schedules and several different meanings for 7 and several times to count those 7s, those 69 weeks or the 62 weeks or the 7 weeks and also the 70th week. So there's a lot going on there. And we won't understand it all until looking backwards. But this is where we're at. This is verified. We are coming up on the 70th Jubilee. We are right here. The Gaza war just happened here, which is possibly the beginning of World War III. Russia invaded Ukraine, beginning of World War III. Remember, we're looking for the great sword of war, which is seal number 2 of the book of Revelation.
We are all thinking that it was a 7-year peace treaty with the Antichrist breaking a covenant in the middle of the week, and then the last 3.5 years are Yahweh's wrath. That appears to be incorrect. Rather, what we have here is the 69 weeks ended, the arrival of Messiah the Prince, the beginning of the 70th week of Daniel, and just a couple of days after, on September 24th, inside of the 70th week of Daniel, we had the great wonder of Revelation sign, Revelation 12:1. Then we had this fulfillment of Ezekiel chapter 33, verse 24 at the United Nations that nobody is paying any attention to. That happened in year 2. Then we had the whole false flag attack of the V stuff going on here. And then in 2020 and 2021. And then here in 2022, we had Russia's invasion of Ukraine happened right in here. And then we just had the beginning of the Gaza war in the last 7 of the 70th week of Daniel. So my question is, this is the beginning of the Jubilee. The 70th Jubilee is going to begin in fall of 2024. And could this be the beginning of the 1,260 days of the 2 witnesses? If that be the case, possibly. The one escape in the wilderness for 1,260 days, possibly. The beginning of the 2 witnesses for that time period. We don't know. Let's just be honest. We don't understand what's going to happen. We have our ideas, but those are only ideas. Right now, this is factual evidence of restoring the Jubilee timeline, syncing it with the chronology of the book of the crossing of the Israelites into Jordan, into the promised land, and we are literally on the verge of it. We're seeing World War III has begun with the invasion of Ukraine. We see now war in the Holy Land, and so we have the Jubilee coming up. Yahweh willing, we can live and make it.
And remember that you get the oil of joy for mourning, and there's good beauty for ashes, okay, the garments of praise for the spirit of heaviness. So the spirit of heaviness has to happen first. The ashes have to happen first, which is the mourning. You would put on sackcloth and ashes. So there's a lot going on. Is the sackcloth and ashes going to start on the Jubilee year? Is the horn going to be, to some it's going to be great, and then others it's going to be distress for them? We don't know. But I'll be taking a look at the 70th Jubilee in the book of Revelation. But what do I expect in the meantime? I expect more of the same. I expect kings go out for war at the beginning of the year. So in the springtime, that's when kings go out for war at the turn of the year. So, around the spring equinox. Also says that when the grass flourishes and all the evildoers blossom, it's for them to be destroyed forever. Well, the almond trees blossom in like the 12th month, the first month they're blossoming. The grass has sprung up. It's flourished by the 12th month, the first month. The green wheatgrass has flourished. So that's all something to consider. So I think this coming beginning year, but also I have some other dates.
So now that we understand that, now it's time to speculate on identifying the Year of Jubilee in the Book of Revelation and synchronizing the events of the Book of Revelation to the Year of Jubilee. So in part 3, I did a video about the 70th year of Jubilee in the book of Revelation. I presented a couple of incorrect scenarios in here of 3 possible scenarios. There's 3 possible scenarios where the 1,260 is. It's either 1,260 before, 1,260 with the Jubilee year in between, or the Jubilee year kicks off the 1,260. There's several scenarios possible. But I want to draw your attention to the Day of Atonement and the 7th seal here, and where the trumpet judgments begin. Remember, the Israelites, when they crossed in, they had the 7 Jubilee horns. Okay, so likely the 7 trumpets in Revelation possibly could be 7 Jubilees. We don't know because it's not translated and using the word Yobel in the Hebrew. It's written in the Greek, possibly written in the Aramaic and the Greek. So that's something to consider, but it happens at the 7th seal. And look at here, the Day of Atonement, Aaron is to take a censer. We see a golden censer here. When he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour, and I saw the 7 angels who stand before Elohim, and to them were given 7 trumpets. Okay, and another angel who had a golden censer. Okay, so we see 7 angels. Okay, at the 7th seal, we see 7 angels giving 7 trumpets. It's very similar, full of burning coals from the altar. We see who had a golden censer came and stood at the altar. Okay, he was given much incense, and we see incense. Aaron, the high priest, is to put incense on the fire before Yahweh in the smoke of the incense. So we see at the altar much incense with the prayers of the saints on the golden altar before the throne, before Yahweh. Yahweh's at the throne, so before Yahweh, he's supposed to put this incense, the high priest is. Yeshua is our high priest. We see the smoke of the incense here, the smoke of the incense before the throne, before Yahweh. Together with the prayers of the saints went up before Elohim and the angel's hand, and the angels took the censer and filled it with fire from the altar and hurled it on the earth, and the earth came peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. Then the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared to sound them. The testimony, the high priest, he is to take some of the bull's blood and with his fingers sprinkle it, okay, all right, on the front of the atonement cover. Then he shall sprinkle some of it with his fingers 7 times. And we see these angels with 7 trumpets. So the 7th theme, the Shemitah theme. And the first angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood. So he's to sprinkle some of the blood with his fingers 7 times before the altar. And he shall then slaughter the goat for the sin offering of the people, and to take its blood behind the curtain, and do with it as he did with the bull's blood. He shall sprinkle it on the atonement cover and in front of it.
Remember Daniel 9:24, that 70 Jubilees are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. And one of the items is to make atonement for iniquity, which is also in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 43, the same atonement that's mentioned there by Moses in that prophecy that was given in the Jubilee year.
And so here we see the first angel sounded with his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled down upon the earth. And 1/3 of the earth was burned up. So the blood was hurled down, it was sprinkled down, and was burned up. 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and 1/3 of the green grass was burned up. So, wow, we see green grass. So this is, obviously it's happening maybe in the spring. I don't know the timing of these judgments here. Very interesting that we see, okay? So this is something to consider regarding what happens at the 7th seal and the Shemitah, the 7 theme in the book of Revelation. Here's a slide that I had from several years ago that I made regarding the Lamb and his 144,000. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits of Elohim to the Lamb.
And remember per Isaiah that the year of my redeemed has come, speaking of the Jubilee year. So we see the Jubilee year here in Revelation chapter 14. Also, we see in Revelation 15 the Song of Moses being sung, and also the Song of the Lamb. Now, the Song of Moses, which one are we talking about? Exodus 15 or Deuteronomy 32? Well, I think Deuteronomy 32 is going to be sung as well because it's all about redemption, it's all about atonement, and it's all about Yahweh's vengeance.
So this video is long enough. There's a lot going on here. Don't say for certain that I'm not saying that the tribulation is going to start on Yom Kippur of the Jubilee. I think that that's the seventh seal would happen on the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippurim, during the Jubilee year, which means that the first 6 seals can happen before. And regarding the date for when the first seal can happen, I'm not certain, but here's the possibility for the start opening of the seals of Revelation, or also the start of the beginning of sorrows. The 5th day of the 10th month is when Ezekiel received the prophecy of Ezekiel 33, verse 21, all the way up to Ezekiel 39. That's interesting. The 10th day of the 10th month is when Nebuchadnezzar set siege to Jerusalem, and they were given over to the sword. That judgment, that prophecy in Isaiah 37:10 that was given to Zedekiah, that's something to consider. That's when the sorrows began for Judah and for Jerusalem. And then on the first day of the first month, that's always an interesting time for things to start. Also on the day out of time, the day of the sun, the day of the spring equinox, the cursed day of Job's birth, that's another time to be looking at. And then also on the 14th day of the first month, the night of Passover. So there's a lot going on here. I hope to make some follow-up videos, but I got to edit this video and get this out. It's very daunting. So many edits go in there to work out my speech impediments. But I hope that you're blessed by the information in the video. I hope that you can think for yourself and not just take my word for it, but take a look at all the information I provided, links in the descriptions to all my tables, to my presentation, to the supporting sources. So check it all out. I hope that you're blessed, and shalom to my brothers and sisters in Messiah Yeshua who have his testimony and guard his commandments. Shalom to you. Hallelujah.